My infernal blessings. I'll just do some quick settings here, and we'll get this going. And hang tight. All right, just gonna do some editing. Just wait for some more folks to come in the room. All right. All right, I think we are good to go. To edits, yep. All right, hang tight. I'm gonna start in a minute. I'll be right back. All right. All right, hang tight 1 sec. All right, let me just run through some quick announcements before we begin. Make sure the sound good. All right. Apologize for that. Just get a few things adjusted. We should be good. All right, let me just run through a couple quick announcements. Obviously, some of this stuff I'm going to run through real quick is you see it running on the ticker there on the bottom of the screen. All right. Obviously, 8th annual Journey to Black Adept Conference. That's priority right now. Again, that'll take place from October 30th to November 2nd. That'll take place here in Hollywood, Florida. You can sign up for the conference now. There's 2 ways to attend. You can either attend it live and in person, or you can attend it virtually. The only difference is virtually, you get access to all the classes and workshops and presentations. You just don't get access to the rituals on Friday and Saturday night. Too much stuff going on, so I don't record any of those rituals. All right. So the event kicks off. I want to keep pumping this out there, especially for those coming for the meet and greet and opening ritual on Thursday, October 30th. So if you do got to make travel arrangements, that opening meet and greet and ritual will take place about 7:30 p.m. on Thursday the 30th for those that are traveling and attending that first evening. And then Friday and Saturday, we kick off from 9 to 4 p.m. classes and workshops and presentations. Then we come back on both days, Friday and Saturday night, around 7:30, 8 o'clock. We do a group ritual followed by a group social dinner afterwards. Okay. The only difference is Friday night is an indoor working, Saturday night is an outdoor working. Okay. And then we close it out Sunday with a question and answer session that I'll be doing from noon to 4 p.m. And that pretty much closes out the 4-day event. You can sign up for that now, register for that now. You can shoot me an email at, you see it going right there on the bottom of the ticker, khnum19@gmail.com. Please include in your email what you are requesting information for, so I know if you want to attend virtually or live and in person, and I will send you that information. All right. Also, if you're interested in a spiritual reading or a consultation, I offer various different types of readings. Clepothic demonic readings, Santa Muerte readings, Egyptian oracle readings, deity readings to see what gods, goddess, demons, and spirits walk with you. Not to worship them, but to establish a stronger relationship and connection with those spirits, so you can grow and evolve on your path to self-mastery. Shadow work readings, which I do a lot of those, which shadow work is an ongoing process. Just depends what's going on in your life, how the waves of it fluctuates and changes, right? But if you need to be pointed in, like a lot of people will say, I'm not sure what I should be doing, right? Or I'm not sure what direction, what kind of work, ritual, I need some, guidance and clarity. Well, shadow work reading is a great tool for that. And as I've said many times before, ritual work should be designed first and foremost to address the needs that you got in your life first before the wants. And first and foremost, make sure you establish the difference of what a want and need is, okay? Some people struggle with that. And as I've said before, the problem is they'll come on the path and they're chasing wants and they don't even realize it, all right? Or maybe you're just interested in a spiritual consultation, but let me clarify again, no matter how many times I say this, a consultation is not a spiritual reading. I just want to make that clear. Consultation is just what it is, the word consultation, right? It's if you go to a lawyer for a consultation, it's seeking advice on something, right? You're consulting with me on something specific you might want to talk about, but a lot of people use a consultation with me. They just got a gang of questions. So they come, I literally have people come with a paper with a list of shit on it, and they just got questions and they want to use it for a one-on-one session just to ask the questions they don't get a chance to ask. So any of the aforementioned, you see my email at the bottom, khnum19@gmail.com. Shoot me an email and we can set up a day and time that works for you. Please include in your email, very important, most important part. Please do not send me an email, I want to do a reading Tuesday at 3 o'clock. It doesn't work like that. As I've said a million times before, I know you hear me say this shit all the time. You say, damn, Baniti, you sound like a broken record. I'm not saying it for you people that get it, right? The ones that get it, thank you. I appreciate it. But no matter how many times I say this, the reason why you keep hearing me say it repetitively is I still get people that email me like that. Send me an email with your full availability on a weekly basis. Let me know from Sunday to Saturday what days and times are good for you. Don't just send me 1 day, 2 days. Now, I could do that, but you might wait weeks before that date is available. If you're only available, very limited. And then please include the time zone you're in. People always forget. They say they want to, they're available from 2 to. Oh, sorry, we're back. I have to adjust it according to my time zone. Okay. Also, if you want to sign up for classes, which is the #1 email I get, you guys all know by now the Patreon page. That's the place to go. I'm looking into some other ideas to transition over into my own personal website to avoid paying all these fees and excess taxes, because crazy thing is all these platforms are being developed for content creators, and we're not controlling really any of our content. So I'm trying to work on alternatives to utilize my own personal streaming and platforms and have full access and control over it. Because basically, and those of you who if we're on social media, etc., basically they're just charging us fees to do shit we could do for ourselves, right? So I'm looking into that, but more to come on that. But if you want to sign up for classes, go to the Patreon page, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. And I tell you this with confidence, not arrogance, for the price that what I'm offering and the amount of content you get, you're not getting that shit anywhere. I stand firm on that. I don't care who it is. The amount of resources, rituals, content, classes, go to the page, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. If you want to see all the ongoing classes, just go to the collection section. You will see a variety of classes with new classes being added regularly. You have the ability to attend live and in person if you can. But if you can't, everything is obviously uploaded and recorded. You can watch them in your own time. And keep in mind, when you join Tier 3, which gives you access to all of the classes, you also get access to everything in the archives, which is going 6 years back. You think that I got almost 1,000 videos on YouTube. And I'm getting there. It's the Patreon is climbing. I don't think there's not many people on social media that have put out the amount of videos and the amount of content that I put out in the period of time. I'm saying there's probably a lot of people out there with a lot of videos, content, but I don't just post bullshit though. I know some people will just post anything for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I'm talking about good quality videos. If I'm not doing a live on YouTube, you see I'm doing the 20 to 30-minute shorter videos, and then Patreon's a whole nother level, right? So check it out, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. Tier 3 is the tier you want to join. That's going to give you access to the 3 private classes I do every month, in addition to the group ritual we do at the end of the month. All right. Also, don't forget to check out all the social media pages. Primordial Chaos 9, one word, on Instagram. Primordial Chaos, 2 words, on Facebook. Primordialchaos.com 3 on TikTok. That's the best places to stay abreast of any classes, events, or anything that's going on here on Primordial Chaos. Please go to those platforms, subscribe to them, and stay abreast of what's going on there. Don't forget to hit the like button, please. Everybody that comes in the room, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that drop-down menu, the notification, and hit all notifications. And hopefully you get notifications that I go live. And look, it happens. They control the algorithms. I'm not going to get into all that. I know you guys are contacting me. Some get the notification, some don't. But just do your best to stay abreast. I know I would like to sometimes announce beforehand when I come on, but I'll be honest with you, the way my life is, with all the things that's going on, it's hard for me to really plan, because 9 out of 10 times I just come on out of pure instinct in the moment. I don't really plan when I come on. Now, back in the day, I used to, when my schedule wasn't as hectic, but it's hard for me to say I'm going to go on. I know some people do that and go, I'm going to go on Friday at 8 o'clock. I wish I could do that, Unfortunately, I can't. So hopefully you get those notifications. Don't forget to check out the Primordial Cast podcast, available on Spotify and all major podcast platforms. All right. Other than that, I think that covers all the announcements. You see the title, Lucifer, the Bible, and the Great Deception. So what inspired this title? I'm going to, a very small pamphlet that you can find on the internet in PDF. I know it's available on Scribd and other platforms. Just Google. It's a famous occult psychologist. I know a lot of people, if you're on the path, you're very familiar with Carl Nagel. First name Carl, C-A-R-L, last name Nagel. Now he, it's been a while. He's been around for, well, not alive anymore, but a lot of his works. Actually, did he transition on? Hold on, I think he did. Don't quote me on that. Let me double check that. Let me fact check that real quick. I can't remember. Let me just check. I believe he did, though. Looks like my phone's cutting up. My phone is cutting up. Okay. That's crazy. Doesn't even have, here we go. Oh, hold on. Bear with me, folks. That's crazy. They don't have. I'm just looking at something. Just bear with me. Yeah, it's still live. Okay. Anyway, first name Carl, C-A-R-L. In case you want to find the pamphlet that I'm going to make some reference to. Last name Nagel, N-A-G-L. I believe Starlight Books is the press company. He put a lot of his books out. And I believe it's out of the United Kingdom. But anyway, if you Google, you can find a lot of these pamphlets. He put out a lot of these little short books. And so I'm going to go through one of some key points there. The Six Messengers of Lucifer is the book. But first and foremost, just a couple quick readings. I'll get to some of your questions when I'm done. But let me just acknowledge people in the room real quick. Stone University Cities is Peace from Minnesota. What's going on? Ultra Instinct. What's going on? Drew Zoe, what's going on? Welcome back. Merciless Butcher. I ain't seen that in a while. Good to see you back here. Trony Wynn, good evening. Wrath 636, Peace from Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, PA. Jose Munez, what's up? Amazing Nini, where you been? Yeah, long time. I haven't seen you in a minute. Yeah, we gotta catch up. I know it's been a minute since we've chit chatted. Hope all is well with you. Blade of Ashtar, there's another one I haven't seen in a while. Good to see you back. Ren, what's going on? Pure relaxation meditation. I'm just gonna do this quick. Yeah, I know Wrath 636. I've been addressing the notification shit. And it just seems like, and I'm just going to be careful what I say because you got to be careful with trigger words. I've heard this from other creators. Yeah, they control the algorithm. You know, in my opinion, this is just my opinion. I think it's because of what I talk about. I don't really talk about mainstream bullshit. And I think if I was talking about a bunch of gossip and foolishness and nonsense, you know, all the nonsense that sells, my algorithm would probably get out there a lot more. But I'm not about that. I'm gonna stay true to what it is I do, because I can tell you this. Yeah, I know you can go to platforms where, you know, these people are getting hundreds and thousands of views, but it's manipulated, right? I told you that. You can actually hire companies to up your views, and they got companies in China. It's insane. I mentioned this a few months back, where you pay them and they have a gang of like cell phones to the wall. I mean, literally, like they have a whole wall with hundreds of cell phones on there, and they just play your videos every fucking all day throughout the day. You're paying them to get you to an X amount of views. So I'm gonna just tell you honestly, you know, a lot of those views, I'm sure some platforms that are popular, they're getting some genuine views a lot, but a lot of these people are hiring companies to upstart their views. I'm just not into it. I'm not in it for that. When you're seeing my views, you know, I'm getting near to 10,000 subscribers, right? You know, that's not a lot compared to some of these other mainstream platforms, and they get crazy. My views are all authentic, right? I'm not manipulating my views. I'm not paying anybody to get them. So if you see 500, 600, 2,000 as they build up over time, 3,000, those are genuine views for the most part. So yeah, it's an algorithm game, but believe me, I've been getting that from a lot of people lately. All right. Again, to everybody else in the room, greetings. I'll get back to your comments. So if I didn't greet you personally, infernal blessings and welcome to the Primordial Chaos Live. See the title, Lucifer, the Bible, and the Great Deception. So I'm going through a short pamphlet that you can find or Google it. You might even be able to buy it. I don't know. I have it on a PDF file. The Six Messengers of Lucifer. So he brings up some key points in here about the Great Deception. He goes into the six aspects of Lucifer, but he also focuses on the first part, is which I'm going to focus on. He brings up some key points from the so-called Bible, and it makes you kind of open your mind to get a better clarity on, you know, who and what Lucifer is and how it's presented, what it is and what it's not, right? Because religion can be very deceptive and tricky because there's so many stories in there that are misinterpreted. Now, I've always suggested when you look at the story of Lucifer, I would also recommend strongly you do research on the Yazidis and Al-Jilwa, the Black Book, which talks about some of these same stories. Now, the whole Lucifer story, which there's a mistake too when they correlate Lucifer and the concept of Satan as the same thing. It's not. Those are titles that have two totally different connotations, but they're intertwined together through religion, I'm saying. I'm not talking about people who are on the cult and people who know and are more knowledgeable and know better, but they don't understand these are attributes of titles, right? Technically, when you do research in the Bible, the word Satan is attributed many times to regular people because it means the adversarial, right? Adversity. It all has root in those words we know in English. So there were many times where a Satan was described, right? Now, people make that synonymous with Lucifer, one, because we don't know the languages. And look, I'm not saying if you're going to compare this through, monotheism and try to connect the dots, I'm not saying you need to be a full linguistic scholar, but the reality is you should have the basic understanding of the etymology of words. Now, I've always referred people to a great free, you can download the app or it's free online, the Online Blue Study Bible, where you can get the Greek, the Hebrew, the Latin translation, so you can do your comparative studies. I've always said and encouraged for years to people to do that. So that's what I'm saying. You have tools at your disposal to do your own research. See, the thing is, people don't want to take time out to do that. So most people, again, not people on the left-hand path of the occult, they're spoon-fed this bullshit and they believe it. Now, some people will say, well, why the emphasis sometimes on the Bible? Because we have to emphasize it where needed, because it is the tool that has been used to indoctrinate people heavily. And I know some people might say they're on the occult left-hand path, oh, I'm beyond the Bible. Oh, no, I don't get. You might be on a surface level, but the indoctrination, the psychological residue it has left on your psyche, people don't have the level of the extent to how deep that goes. Now, yes, there's some who have had the experience over a vast period of time and have filtered majority or most of that out. But I've seen people still on the occult for many years, and I still see the influence of that in their work and the things they do and say and the questions they ask. And they don't realize psychologically the impact that has. So you got to understand, if you come on this path, you can come on the path as a teenager in your 20s, 30s, 40s. The later you come on this path, the more deprogramming from, the religious mindset, for the most part, if you've come up in that religious school, which most of us have here in the West, right? Most of us, doesn't matter if you say, well, I wasn't raised in a super religious, strict household, but we're raised in a so-called environment that claims to be Christian. And the way things are operated and ran, it's supposedly under those precepts. So you're influenced by it one way or the other. Some very directly and a strong impact, some not. But a lot of the bullshit that's out there, that's why it's important. It's very important to go over this stuff and rehash a lot of the nonsense that's in the Bible, because a lot of it's out there. I still see people always correlating a lot of the stuff, like even with Lilith. Why are we always correlating this to Hebrew mysticism? Oh, Lilith in the Garden of Eden and this, that, and the third. As I said before, you cannot put a time frame on any of these infernal spirits. Okay, they're as old as time itself, just like you are. You like to believe you're just this recent modern manifestation of a being, but you're not. Right? And by understanding the stuff that I'm going through, it's going to unlock the divine in you, right? So you can come to the realization of who you really are, not who they told you, right? They trap you from jump with this whole, you were born in such and such a year. They make you believe this is your first physical incarnation on this realm, right? So they put you to sleep. They give you what I call spiritual amnesia. They put you in a deep sleep. And they bury you in that amnesia with just a shitload of lies. And then the next step they do is they teach you to look for the truth and the answers outside of yourself. They teach you to look outside of yourself for the answers that you're seeking. So the first step, as I said to you guys in a lot of the recent videos, they put this so-called creator or God as far away as they can. That was step one. So now you're on a mission from day one looking for something that doesn't even exist. See, to tap into the very essence of it, all you had to do was look within yourself. What their goal was, we have to have each individual focused, looking as far away from themselves as they can. So now, again, you're on this illusionary Easter egg hunt to find something that you're never going to find, right? And that's done intentionally. So this is why we have to go through a lot of this stuff. All right, so let's go into Carl Nagel's pamphlet here. And he opens it up with a saying there from Milton: the stars with Deep amaze, stand fixed in a steadfast gaze, bending one way their precious influence. And will it not make their flight? It's kind of poetry. For all their morning light, O Lucifer, that often warned them thence, but in their glimmering orbs did glow until the Lord himself bid them go. Milton, right? The great deception. People forget that Lucifer is an angel, a fallen one, but an angel nonetheless, right? And you'll hear, it's funny because you'll hear Christians say stuff like, oh, Lucifer used to be a beautiful angel of light and blah, 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 this and that. They say things and they don't realize, they don't understand it, and then how it comes back full circle to kind of bite them in the ass, for a lack of a better word. All right, so he makes reference here, and again, if you have a Bible, you might want to pull one out or just write down some of these quotes that he has in here that you can research. I'm going to go through them so we can, and they're brief, just go through some of them so we can kind of build and discuss. So the first one he has here is Ezekiel 28:13. And this is important because pay attention to some of the things that are mentioned in this verse. Okay. See, the biggest fear is reverends and pastors and preachers have, if we really study this from an occult perspective and not from a indoctrinated religious perspective, that we would wake up, right? So when you go to 28:13, and we're gonna actually go a little bit further than that. It reads, "Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God." It's talking about Lucifer. "Every precious stone was thy covering, the sardius, the topaz, the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, the jasper." And it's funny because a lot of so-called New Age people use every stone I'm running off here are very popular in the crystal community. And who had, according to religious theology, who controlled the energy of those stones and crystals? Lucifer, right? So are you tapping into Lucifer energy when you're doing that? Be careful before you answer. All right, I'm going to name some more. Jasper, sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold. The workmanship of thy tablets and of thy pipes were prepared in the day that thou wast created. Thou art anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee, and now upon the holy mountain of God, and thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing for time's sake. I would suggest you go down, continue when you get time to read until probably the 19th verse. I mean, read the whole chapter if you have your whole time, but I'm not going to do that. So that's one, Ezekiel 28:13, right? And he quotes that. Now, he continues on to elaborate on it. Lucifer is a Latin word. This is partially right, but he elaborates further down. That was used as a name for the morning star, Venus, that precedes the rising of the sun. He gets into the light bearer part further. Now, I want to stop there. What he should have did here, too, is give you the quote, right? And I pointed this two quotes out. The title of morning star is given to two people in the Bible, and two people only, okay? One being Jesus and the other being Lucifer. You connect the dots, but let me run through them real quick. So if you go to Isaiah 14:12, right, you will see Lucifer mentioned by name with that title. So let's just pop over there real quick. Go to the book of Isaiah. If you're following along and you have a Bible, go to 14:12. And it reads, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, would just weaken the nations, right? So you see the title there, son of the morning star, or son of the morning. Now go to Revelations chapter 22 in your New Testament. So Lucifer is referred to, son of the morning. And now if you go to Revelations chapter 22, I believe it's verse 16. And it reads, I, Jesus, have sent my angel to testify unto you these things to the churches. Now I want to stop. We have to also establish, I recently did a video on Melchizedek, who Jesus's angel was. right? And that's why I did that video. I'm going to pop into that in a minute. It says, I am the root and the offspring of David and the bright and morning star. So here in Isaiah 14:12, Lucifer is referred to the morning star. And in Revelations 22, verse 16, Jesus is referred to as the morning star. Now, I've heard people give their interpretation on this and add to this. And anytime I see a so-called religious person doing that, I refer them in this same chapter. Go to the 18th verse. It says, for I testify to every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book. If any man shall add unto these things, God shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book. So don't add shit. If you believe from a religious perspective that this is true, I've heard people try to interpret this book, add to it, change shit. Well, you're adding all the plagues of this book to you if you believe from a religious perspective. I don't, so I'm using this as a resource, right? Because it's actually an apocrypha book, right? But for those that want to give their false interpretation of it, then and you're religious, you're violating verse 18. So you can't do that. It's clear as day. Don't change the words. Don't try to twist it around to fit your narrative. It's clear as day. He's referred to as the morning star, just like Lucifer. The question is why? That's a whole nother story, right? But I find it interesting also that Jesus mentions in the very last chapter that this was sent and signified by his angel. So who is his angel? So I'm going to rehash just a couple of things fast that I was talking about in the Melchizedek video. And then I'm going to move back on into this. This kind of all what inspired to kind of do this topic tonight, because it's going to be jumping around a bit. Now, stay in that same book. If you go to Revelations, the first chapter, the very first verse, it says, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John. What is this talking about? Real simple. Most people don't understand the history of the books of the Bible. What do I mean? I can tell you what year such and such book was revealed. Any of you can do it. Go to that online resource I told you. You need to know the year these books were revealed, what was going on at that time, why they were revealed, what was the condition of the people, why it speaks in the tense it does. Because this prevents you from taking everything literally. Because people will take shit from a book, one of the books of the prophets, and it was speaking to a situation or something that was going on at that time in that moment, but they'll twist the narrative and they'll try to make it look like it's applying to something today. You can do that with a lot of shit in the Bible. Shit, anytime there's some cataclysmic event or some conspiracy or some great travesty going on in the world, it's easy people do it all the time. Like when COVID, for an example, end of the world, Jesus is getting ready to return, and they'll go into Matthew 24 and use when plagues and pestilences. Man, that shit's been going on for years, right? There's been plagues and pestilences and famine shit before we were even born. This started, right? And then it says, behold, I come quickly. Well, that shit's not quickly. This is the same man that said, I'm leaving and I'll be back soon. And that was over 2,000 years ago, according to biblical theology. I don't know about you, but according to linear time, 2,000 plus years is not soon, according to linear time. People don't want to address this shit. But let's address that first verse. So the book of Revelations, according to biblical theology, was revealed in the year 98 AD, which is 98 years after the death of so-called Christ. And it was revealed to John, son of Zebedee, who was one of the original 12 disciples. Remember, I've got to teach this as if I'm teaching it through biblical theology, so bear with me. And John, at that time that he received this revelation, he was on the island of Patmos in Greece in prison, according to theology. Now, the key here is that he received this revelation directly from Jesus himself, according to Revelation. And Jesus confirms this was given to him and revealed to him by his angel. So this is the only direct revelation that's given to Jesus in the entire Bible. Now, I want to address something. I don't want to get sidebarred, and I'm going to do a side video on this because I've been seeing a lot of debates on YouTube lately about between Muslims and Christians on the Quran. And there's something I'm seeing that they all got wrong. What is the Injil? And people get this so fucking wrong because all you got to do is look up the word in Arabic And it clearly defines when the Injil is mentioned in the Quran, and when it's mentioned in the Quran, it's specifically referring to a revelation or a book that was given to Jesus. Go read it. Revelation, that's what the word is broken down to in Arabic and the meaning. Now, what I'm seeing a lot of shady Christians do and poor Muslims who are not educated to their own so-called faith, they don't go to the etymology and the research of the word. So I'm seeing a lot of Christians trying to bash Muslims and say that the Injil is the entire New Testament, all the Gospels, and all. No, it's not. That's not what it is. Go look up the word in Arabic and what it's referring to in the context of the Quran. It is referring to a revelation or a book that was given to Jesus specifically. And there's only one book that you can confirm that was directly a divine revelation given to Jesus, which he gave to John, which is the book of Revelations. And that's it. So when you have these debates, if some of you uneducated Muslims who don't even know what that means, I've watched you guys sit there and get beat up and bashed by Christians because you don't even know your own religion. It's pretty sad. Do the research. All you have to do is come back at them, because now that opens up a greater discussion, right? Because as I've said before, the letters of Paul are just letters. They're just that. Anybody that studies history, the Black Hebrew Israelites say that. Anybody that studies religious theology knows they're just letters back and forth between individuals. I don't want to get sidebarred because the whole Paul thing is a whole thing in itself, right? Not all the so-called four Gospels are authentic, because for an example, and again, I got to do this quick because I don't want to get sidebarred. Going to Luke chapter 1. Luke is not one of the original 12 disciples. And most people don't know that because, again, they don't know the year the book was revealed. They don't know who Luke was. But listen to what Luke says in the very first chapter. All you got to do is read the first chapter, the first couple of verses. He tells you who he is. For as much as many have taken in hand to set forth in order a declaration of those things which are mostly surely believed among us, even as they delivered them unto us, which from the beginning were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word. It seemed good to me also, listen to what he's saying here, having had perfect understanding of all things from the very first, to write unto thee in order most excellent Theophilus. So Luke is a book, he's writing a letter to Theophilus. He's telling, this is years after so-called Christ has departed now. And he feels, based on his understanding, talking to eyewitnesses and testimony and what he gathered, which obviously cannot be 100% accurate because he was not there, right? He felt good enough to him to write a book. So Christians don't address that. Religious folks don't address that. I'm not saying there's nothing in Luke that's not in alignment with the other so-called four Gospels, but I can point out a bunch of things that are not. Now, if you think that there can't be no inaccuracies, you're a fool. That's just like, this always happened on. That's just like, there's this great party coming up Friday night, right? You can't go, but I'm going to be there. And such is going to be there. And such is going to be there. So after the party's over, you go talk to 5, 6 different people, and I bet you're going to get 5, 6 different stories about different things. I'm sure there's going to be some things that might be accurate and a lineup, but I guarantee you're going to hear shit from one person you didn't hear from another. You're going to get positive feedback from this one, negative from that, inaccuracies, this, that, and the third. So let's stop acting like these are divine revelations, because they're not. So I want to put that out there. I'm going to do a short video on that sometime next week about what the Injil is in the Quran. It is not the entire New Testament. It is not all the Gospels. It is alluding specifically to a book that was revealed to the prophet Jesus, and that book is the book of Revelations. Now, back to our quick topic, as a sidebar that was. So who was this angel that sent and signified it? Now, this is kind of what I elaborated on in that Melchizedek video. I'm going to run through it real fast and then get back to this. Well, let's first go to Genesis 14:18. I'm going to give you just a quick tutorial. I couldn't do this in the video because I do those videos while I'm driving. So I'm kind of just flowing off the dome. I can't give you some resources, but I'm going to actually read some of the resources I referred to in that video. If you go to Genesis 14:18, okay, and it reads, and it says, the king of Sodom went out. Let's go to 17 first. Actually, let's back up. Let's go to 16. And he brought, this is Abraham, and he brought back all the goods and also brought again his brother Lot and his goods and the woman also and the people. This is after the spoils of war. Read the whole chapter when you get time. This was after the fall of Sodom and Gomorrah, when the city was purged and destroyed, and they're leaving, they're looting and taking all the booty. See, they don't talk about that part, right? But anyway, and the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer, and the kings that were with him in the valley of Shaveh, which is the king's Dale. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. Verse 19. And he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. Who is this king that just appears out of nowhere? Well, the name, when you look up the name Melchizedek, that's really the Greek translation of it. The actual translation of it is Malachi Zodok, right? Angel of justice, or some say angel of righteousness. Some translate it as king of righteousness. But who is this character that we first see appear in Genesis 14:18 and all throughout the Bible up into the New Testament? But it gets even a little bit more interesting, for a lack of a better word, right? Let's now go to Psalms chapter 110. So we see him mentioned way back here in the time of so-called Abraham. And again, remember, I'm teaching this from religious theology. Okay, let's go to Psalms 110. And it's verse 4. And I'm going to do it quick to just show you how spread out it is. Jesus, come on. All right, there we go. And this is a Psalm of David, right? And verse 4 says, and the Lord has sworn and will not repent. He's saying this to David. Thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. That's Psalms 110:4. Now let's go up to in the New Testament to the book of Hebrews. This is all ties into that first quote in Revelations 1:1. See, your reverend and your pastor, they're not gonna show it to you like this because they got an agenda. Okay, I want you to go to Hebrews chapter 5. Okay, and I want you to go to verse 5, and it reads, I couldn't do this in the car. I want to read Hebrews 5 verses 5 to 7. Okay, and it reads, so also Christ glorified not himself to be made a high priest, but he said unto him, thou art my son, today I have begotten thee. Sounds very similar to Psalms 110, doesn't it? And he said also in another place, which is Psalms 110 verse 4, right? Thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek, who in the days of his flesh, when he had offered up prayers and supplications with strong crying and tears unto him that was able to save him from death, and was heard in that which he feared. Now that's talking about, I'm not going to get into that here because that's a super sidebar. Verse 7 is talking about when Jesus was praying in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? When he was asking the cup to be passed from him. I'm not going to get into this here because it says his prayers were answered there. Nobody elaborates on it. They give you their interpretation of it. Just to give you something to think about. We'll come back to that. So we see he's mentioned here in Hebrews 5, verses 5 to 6. Again, this being Melchizedek is mentioned and the order of Melchizedek. Now, let's go to Hebrews 7, which gives clarity on it. And then I'll move on. I'm going to go back to Carl Nagel stuff. I have to connect these dots because this is how I teach. If I don't teach like this, I'm just running my mouth and blabbing and not kind of taking you from point A to B, regardless if you don't want to. But this is the difference of what we do. There's people that read and then there's people that study. We study. I teach people how to study and do research. That's the only way you learn. All right. So Hebrews chapter 7, verses 1 to 4. And let's read it real quick. For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, or Salem, it says, which is the English word that's where in Arabic would be salam, peace, and in Hebrew it's shalom. Where this Melchizedek, king of peace, or Salem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him. And we read that in Genesis chapter 14, right? So I'm showing you how this is all correlated. So you can't say, oh, you're just taking pieces and making this look like it's this, that, and the third. No, it's clearly connecting all these dots. Verse 2, to whom also Abraham gave a tenth part of all, first being by interpretation king of righteousness, and after that also king of Salem, which is king of peace, right? So that's where you get those titles from. Now, by the way, this given a tenth of everything you got, this is the quote that the ministers use to justify people tithing and giving 10% of all their earnings. This is the shit that they use. This quote right here. Now, the problem I got with that is these are the same Christians that tell you by the blood of the Lamb, we are given grace and we are no longer under the old covenant. Well, the tenth of all given is an Old Testament law, which you saw I just read in Genesis 14. So why are these ministers still demanding 10% of everybody's fucking earnings? Okay? If you say that we are not under the old covenant or the old law, that's what they say. Right? We are washed in the blood of the Lamb. And obviously Jesus said something entirely different, right? He said, I come not to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. Not one jittle shall be abolished or removed or omitted from the law. I'm not going to get into that. It's a whole nother class. Done videos on that. We talk about that in the esoterical occult Bible study class. Let me try to stay on topic. It's hard because it goes into other avenues, right? So this is the old give 10% of all your money, right? Now, verse 3, without father. Now it's giving more info on this Melchizedek. And it's not Melchizedek. I know people say that, but anyway. Without father, without mother, without descent, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like unto the Son of God, abideth the priest continuously. Wait a minute. No genealogy, no mother, no father, no birth record. It says no beginning of days, no beginning, no end. There's no record of this. Now, this is where the Jehovah's Witnesses and other Christians who try to attribute to Melchizedek, they say Melchizedek and Jesus is the same person. And it's clearly not. Because all you got to do is go back to Hebrews 5. It says, thou art priest. That Jesus was made a priest after the order of Melchizedek. There's a separation there, just like there is in the Trinity, but that's a whole nother story. So it goes now in verse 4. Now consider how great this man was, unto whom even the patriarch Abraham gave a tenth of all spoils. And then you can read the rest in real time. So now we have this so-called being that has no beginning, no end of days. Now, when you do your further research and you dig, you will find there's a lot of similarities to this character, Melchizedek, and the angel Michael or Michael. It's like it says, almost likens him to God, as all the angels, especially the seraphim, were referred to as sons of God. That title was not exclusive to the person we call Jesus. Now, if you go to Malachi 4, which is the last book in the Old Testament, and there is still debate to this day who wrote the book of Malachi. And Malachi or Malachia means my angel. Some say my messenger, but it means my angel when you look it up. And go to the 4th chapter. Okay? The 4th chapter. And some say this book was written by that same angel. And it's short, 6 verses. And it says, for behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven. Now, this is an apocryphal book. All the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble, and the day cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings. Right? Now, when it's spelling the word son there, if you go look at it, it's not using the word S-O-N. It's using the word S-U-N. Now, the sun, or Atun in Egypt, is also referred to as the source of all creation, because the sun is the source of all life force, or is needed as a life force for us to exist on this planet. Now, we know some of these apocryphal books take from texts that predated it. Are we not, in the last couple of years, relieve the religious stuff? Is not the planet getting warmer Is not the sun getting closer to our planet? If you understand what equinoxes are, and if you understand what epochs are, and an equinox is roughly 25,000 years. Really, it's 24,896 years, because that's the circumference of the planet, and that's the amount of time it takes for our planet to take a full rotation around our universe. And we are now at a point where our planet Earth is close to the sun, right? And they're bullshitting you in the news with all the global warming. They're not being honest with you. It's obvious the planet is warming up. We are the closest to the sun you can be in an equinox. So we've made that full circle, and the Son of Righteousness now is coming with healing in its wing. Is there a connection with Melchizedek and the sun? Is there a connection with the sun and Ra in Egypt? Of course there's a connection there. You've got to connect the dots. You ain't got to believe me. A religious person is not going to believe me. But I'm not interested in that. I don't care. I want you guys from an occult perspective to connect it. We are watching nature do its things in cyclical and cycle time. See, I thought you probably thought I was going to get just into religion. I'm trying to tell you, when you read this book, you got to understand you're reading an infusion of different prophecies, different texts that predated, all into one, and then men got together and jumbled this shit up, and now you have in front of you what you think is this so-called book that they call the modern day Bible. And that's why they've gone back over it many times and translated it, revised it, so they can go in there and change things around. Because when you look at the original, I'm reading from the King James 1611 AD translation, because that's the one that I will always use to show these things, because now they've come out with a new revised version, the new revised to the revised new version. Because they keep going back changing shit because they don't want you to see it. Now I'm going to connect more dots for you. So we are in a period of nature where nature is ridding itself. Mother Nature is ridding herself of everything that is plaguing it. We've destroyed the planet. Humans are the most compassionate and fucked up people at the same time. We've destroyed the ozone layer. We've poisoned the waters. We've created bacteria and viruses. We think we're doing noble things. When an animal is going extinct, we foolishly think by, oh, the bald eagle is going extinct, or this animal, let's try to save it. No, you're not doing anything noble. You're going against the natural ecology of nature. If nature says that that animal has ran its time and is expired, stop trying to change that, because what you're doing is you're throwing off the natural ecology of things. That animal was put into existence and created to serve its period of time. But nature says that its time and cycle has expired. Let that animal expire, okay? But we think all these animal activist groups, oh, they're so righteous. They're trying to stop the bald eagle from going extinct. If nature wanted it to continue to be here, it would be here, because nature will rid itself of everything that's not supposed to be here. And you're seeing that happen now. That's why the planet is warming up. That's why for the last 3 years now, I'm going to say it's probably the third straight year, the summers are getting more intense, right? When the cycles and the seasons change, shit, the seasons are so out of whack now. And I'm telling you this, born and raised in New York, and I've probably been out of New York. I mean, I still go back and forth all the time, but I've officially been out of New York since like 2013, 2014. But there's no seasons no more. It goes from hot to cold. Anybody that lives in the Northeast knows that. You barely get, like, there used to be a true spring and a true fall. You don't get that no more. It goes from hot to cold, cold to hot for the most part. I mean, the temperatures are through. I'm in South Florida. These last 3 summers are brutal. Every day it's high 90s. With the heat index, it's like over 100. It's hot. Don't tell me that there's nothing going on. It's something going on in nature, because nature is saying, I had enough of this shit. We're finishing a cycle. And just like when your body gets sick and you have a virus, what do? You get a temperature, right? You get a fever. The fever is the burning process that burns the sickness out. Well, the planet is sick. And I'm not saying this from some fucking new age, green grass drinking sarsaparilla juice and all that shit. I'm just telling you this from a scientifical and a natural nature perspective. The planet is sick, and it's saying it's time for you motherfuckers and everything that's plaguing it to get the fuck out of here so we can start this all over again. See, that's what happens. Just like when you're reading your Genesis story, you're picking up from one of many replenishing periods. The Bible is not the beginning of creation. Again, because people don't do basic research, the word Genesis is Bereshith, and it means to reconstruct, which is confirmation. To reconstruct something, you're just fixing something that was already here. You're talking about a tribe being created in the first chapter of Genesis, the Adamites. But you think Adam is just a man. It's clear because you go into Genesis 1 verse 26, you see the creation of male and female simultaneously. Then you see a separate creation of the man and woman, especially the woman in Genesis 2, which is so-called Eve, right? But who's the creation of the male and female in Genesis 1 simultaneously? You're talking about tribes, okay, that were already here. Who is it referring to? The Neolithics. I got to give you the fast version. You're going to have to do the research to find this and connect the dots. Those were the Neolithics that occupy what we know as the Nile region, right? You know them today as the Pygmies and the Watusis. And as I explained before, the Pygmies are small beings that some say stood between 4'8" to 5'6". You could go into Aswan or Sudan and Nubia. You look at a deity there called Bes, who obviously worked his way into Egypt from the ancient Nubians. He was a pygmy deity. You see in a lot of cultures, Legba, right? When you go into Nigeria, you see a lot of these so-called, dwarf or small pygmy-like deities existed in these cultures. Those were your pygmies. And then you had the Anakims or the Nephilims or the giants who stood 7 foot plus, right? You see a lot of basketball players that are 7 foot plus, right? You see the Nephilims and the Anakims mentioned in Genesis chapter 6. I know this is all over the place. I know I opened a can of worms here, but let's go there real quick. Stay there. I'm going to get back to the Melchizedek. I didn't forget my thought. Go to Genesis 6. Because we're going to get into that. The God, of course, everything Carl Nabel put in here, he's opening that door to a lot of this. Now, some of it I'm elaborating on further. You're not going to find that in there. I'm bringing it up because it's kind of connecting the dots. But if you go into Genesis chapter 6, verse 1 in Genesis 6, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and the daughters were born in unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that were fair, and they took with them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is also flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. For all those who think that is Jesus, because Christians will tell you that's talking about Jesus right there. Well, it's saying that this person would live to 120 years. Did Jesus, according to their theology, live to 120 years? No, he lived to 33 years. 3 and 3, 6. That gets into the occult, right? I'm not going to get into the crucifixion right now, because if you say that quote is referring to Jesus, the third verse, then you're cornering yourself. Because if you say that what he's talking about there refers to Jesus, then you would have to also accept it saying he would live to 120 years. Explain that to me. You can't. But anyway, let's continue on. Verse 4. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in into the daughters of men, they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which were men of old, men of renown. Now it's talking about two beings in that verse. It's talking about the Nephilims or the Anakim or the giants that were already there. And then it talks about the sons of God, which is clearly mentioning another host of beings that came down into the daughters of men. And it said they produced children with them. Now, if you look at these Nephilim, and if you study religious theology, they resided in a place called Ur of Chaldees, which is where Abraham was so-called from. Ur of Chaldees, and the word Ur means flame or fire, right? And where you find that on the map is what you would call in that area of, Iraq, where they so-called, going up on that line when you look on the map, near Persian Gulf, Iraq. This is where these Anakim or these giants resided when you look on the biblical map. Now you also see it mentioned briefly, this same Anakim's mentioned in the story when King David, right? He's fighting this giant this Philistine that pops out of nowhere. So my point being is this. Now, when you read this story in Genesis, There comes a point with the story with Cain and Abel that Cain kills Abel because they give an offering to the Most High. Cain's offering is accepted. Abel's is rejected. I'm sorry. Abel's offering is accepted. Cain is rejected. Cain gets upset about that, and out of jealousy and rage, kills his brother. Right? So real quick, fast forward the story. There's more elements I'd like to get into, but we'll be here for 8 hours if I go through this in every little detail, but I got to give you the gist of it. So then we see Cain is banished to a place called the land of Nod or Nod, right? But here's the interesting thing when you read that story. It says that the Most High put a mark on his forehead, and the purpose of the mark was so that nobody would kill him. All right, stop. Question. According to that time, according to biblical theology and what religious folks will tell you, the only people that were alive were Adam, Eve, Cain, and now obviously Abel is deceased. Who were they afraid? Who was Cain fearing that would kill him when he was banished to the land of Nod or Nod, which was that same area where the Anakims were? It's talking about these people that I just read to you in Genesis 6 that were already here. And to show you, say, well, that's in 6. Well, I can go down to 1, like I told you. Go to 1. See, like I told you, anyway, let's go 126. To show you, and God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he them. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. This is not talking about the creation of Adam and Eve. It's talking about the creation of male and female simultaneously, the tribes, Adamites, right? These were the beings of the ground, right? That were created again after one of the many replenishing periods. Meteorites have struck this planet and destroyed it multiple times, right? So this is saying these male and female beings were created and told to replenish the earth. And if you replenish something, you're filling it again with something that was already here. So what they're not telling you in these stories, there were beings already here. Okay? It's easy when you do the research, you can confirm it, because if you don't understand that, then you would have to explain who was Cain fearing that would kill him, and why did the mark have to be put upon his head. Okay? So, having said that, I know I'm jumping. I got to go back to the Melchizedek thing. I'm trying to get you to see that this Melchizedek that you're seeing was the order of Melchizedek was present for all of this. And a lot of the stuff, when it talks about the Son of Righteous coming with healing in its wings, what they don't tell you before the Messiah returns, right? That the angel Michael or Melchizedek would have to come first, right? Just like it's no different when the forerunner of John the Baptist, the forerunner of the Messiah, John the Baptist, it was prophesied that he would have to come first to prepare the way for the one crying out in the wilderness would have to come to prepare the way for the Messiah. As it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. What you're seeing, right? And people are always using this term called Christ consciousness, because the character Jesus and Melchizedek are so closely linked together, because the sacred priesthood and brotherhood is connected to that. The Catholic Church models their priesthood after Melchizedek. They brought forth bread and wine. That tradition was carried down all the way to the Last Supper, where bread and wine was used at the Last Supper. And through the act of transubstantiation, it's presented as the body and blood of Jesus. I mean, it goes deeper, right? I'm trying to show you how when you're seeing a host of beings speaking in a plural form, that there, when you're seeing speaking, it says, let us, who's talking there? Go back to your online Bible. You will see when it's singular, it's El Elo, or Elo for what? Excuse me. When it's plural, it's Elohim. You'll see both of those words intertwined to show you. I know people will tell you, oh, crazy, oh, that's Jesus. That's God talking to Jesus. No, he's talking to a host of beings. And again, you're nailing yourself, you're pinning yourself against the wall, because it's very easy to combat that. See, that's the game, because that's what they do to validate their Trinity bullshit. right? They tried to take these quotes to shape a narrative to get you to believe in this three goes into one shit and this and that. And I've heard every whacked interpretation of it. But anyway, I don't want to get sidebarred. Back to Melchizedek. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but you got to bear with me, be patient. So my point being, Malachi 4:2, the Son of Righteousness coming with healing in its wings. Though it's referring also to the S-U-N Son, it's also referring to this Son of Righteousness, this King of Righteousness, all these titles and attributes, likened unto the Son of God, right? So they intertwine the S-O-N with the S-U-N because there's a connection there, right? When you understand the esoterical aspect of it, it's saying the Son of Righteousness must come with healing in its wings. It's a representation of the physical sun, which is happening right now as we're speaking. Nature is whooping ass right now as we're talking. If it's not forest fires on one part of the coast, it's earthquakes and fucking tsunamis and hurricanes and tornadoes and cataclysmic storms and global warming. Is not the Son of Righteousness arrived with healing in its wings? Now, I'm not saying that that's to be preceded by some fucking fictitious story that they're teaching you. This comes in later teachings. I won't even elaborate on that. They're making you think that this is talking about just the return of a literal man. It's reiterating to you the story of the cycles of nature and how the natural cycle of things transpires. Remember, been telling you guys for years, we deal with cyclical time, right? Not linear time. See, the linear time is where you get caught up in the man worship. So they can trap you into the man worship with the linear time. You can if you understand who Melchizedek is, because what did it say? Melchizedek is not conformed to linear time, right? He has no beginning, no end, no beginning of days, no birth record, no mother, no father. So he supersedes linear time. So don't pick your brain trying to see. Their goal was to get you trapped in the man worship. Their goal is to get you trapped in the person, place, and thing. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, God, man, devil, God, angel, revelation, or a book or a Bible. Everything is in threes. It's done in repetition to program you subconsciously. Because if they keep programming you in threes, Jesus died at 33, right? His ministry was 3 years, right? Because really, it was only 3 years of his life recorded in the Bible. You see pieces when he was 12, returning from Egypt and coming into the temple in Jerusalem for the census. And he's mystified the Pharisees and the scribes there. Says they were very dumbfounded by his wisdom because he's dropping them Eastern. We got 33 people in the room, if that's not a message right now, right? 3-3, which is really the 6, which really is the inverted 9 when you turn it the other way. And what does it also say in the book of Revelation 18? That the number of the beast is the number of man, 66, 666. You think that's evil, right? When you add it up, it's 9. It's 18. 1 and 8 is 9. Turn it upside down, it's 27. 2 and 7 is 9. And then when you go into the book of Revelations, what does it tell you? The 144,000, which is 9, 1, 4, 4, and 4. Angels of the lesser name, there's 72. There's 72 of the positive angels. Add them together, what do you get? The 144. We're back to the number 9. You can't escape 3, 6, and 9. When you get into the Masonic Lodge, 3, 6, and 9 means something entirely different. You're paying attention, you're paying attention. If you're not, you're not. This is all occult knowledge. They just don't want to tell it to you, so they dumbed it down and made it man worship. But they know what the fuck they're saying when they're initiating these things, because Lucifer, the light bearer who comes with that intellect, see, Lucifer was adverse to all the bullshit, which we're gonna get it. We're gonna go back. I didn't forget. If you guys know how my mind works, I didn't forget. I'm sitting there talking to you about this, but I already know everything I'm gonna say about this. It's already there. Poof, it's just gonna come out, right? Because that's how this works. I hope you're following me, right? I'm going to go down to the comments. I hope you guys are following me. I know this is a bit all over the place, but I'm doing my best, right? So what we're seeing, I'm trying to get you to see, is we're seeing the natural cycle of nature doing what nature does every 25,000 years. It's not the first time this happened, right? And there will be another book that tries to explain this after this cycle is complete. Right? But there will also be corrupt beings who will try to come and alter the bullshit because the powers that be that have an agenda for power and control. Right? So when I say they, you always hear me referring to they and they that are doing that. I'm referring to all of those individuals, whether that's the government, whether that's law enforcement, whether that's the religious hierarchy, all those people who have agendas because they want power and control. That's the they I'm referring to. Just want to make that clear. I ain't talking in no spooky sense. Like you hear people talking the Illuminati and they can't put a name or a tag on it, right? Any of those people that fit that category are the fucking they. That's what you need to know. And that doesn't exclude any particular race or ethnicity. Because look, as you get smarter, you're going to find out this is bigger than race. Okay? Because all these fucking individuals that get together and got an agenda, you're going to see people from all walks of life. Don't get caught up in the race game. The race game is used as a tool to keep you blinded to what's going on. I'm not saying there's not racism going on. That's part of the plan. But what I'm trying to say is stop getting caught up in the race game with everything. And that's what they're doing now to keep you blind with the whole political shit. Trump is the Trump card, right? It's race. You look at Trump and you're enraged. He's a racist. He's this, he's that. All of that to control your emotions out of anger, hate, fear, all of that shit. So, I mean, that gets into all, I didn't want to get into that. That gets into a whole nother story, but hold on. So long story short, I'm trying to show you here, and that's why I did that Melchizedek video. I'm going to do a part 2 and focus on the order of Melchizedek. So now we get a little clarity on that. We get a little clarity on Revelations. Let's go back now to Carl Nagel, all right? So because Venus orbits between the Earth and the Sun, it can never be seen during the dark of midnight. It can be seen in the eastern morning sky for an hour or so before the sun rises, and in the western night sky for an hour or so after the sun sets. But let's be clear. The sun doesn't rise or set, right? I have to address that. I've addressed it before, but let's be clear. The Earth, it takes the Earth to make one full rotation on its axis, 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 56 seconds, rounded off to 24 hours. So right now here on the East Coast, it is 9:52 p.m., which creates the illusion we are in darkness and evening hours. It's not that, it's just that we are now made a full rotation, and we're on this side where that side of the planet is blocking out the sun. The sun never goes anywhere. It just creates the illusion of rising and setting because it's tilted on its axis. So when it's making that rotation, there's a slight wobble or tilt, creating the illusion as it makes that full turn, and you're sitting on the beach and you're watching this beautiful sun appearing to rise, and it's not even moving or going anywhere. It's because you just don't understand basic science and astronomy. We call it sunrise. And then the same thing when you're on the beach watching it, you think, oh, we say shit, the sun is going down. Where's it going? Where is it disappearing to? See, it's important, as basic and kindergarten as that may be, it's that little concept they stamped in our mind at a very young age that got us spooked out. Let's be honest, we all were kids and believed the sun disappeared. If you say you didn't, you're full of shit. I know there's always the one, no, I was a special kid and I spoke to beings and beings been appearing to me since I was 2. Maybe they have. Outside of you special motherfuckers, you 1 or 2, we all believe that shit disappeared, okay? So let's make sure we understand basic science. It doesn't rise or set. It creates the illusion it does, right? And again, it takes roughly 24 hours as a full rotation on its axis, right? Use of this name in reference to, remember the bright morning star. There's a reason why I said that. Use of this name in reference to the devil stems from a particular interpretation of a passage from Isaiah that speaks of someone who's given the name of the morning star as fallen from the sky. However, when we just read that, right? Isaiah 14:12, Revelations 22:16. However, elsewhere in the Bible, the same word is used for morning star with no relation to the devil. And I read that to you. Lucifer also means light bearer, the bringer of light. In Calvin's Magica Atrium, we read, the fall of the splendid angel in dizzy descent through the heavens did ignite the sun. The angel then falling did bring light. Let's think about that for a moment. The devil, Lucifer, has always been associated with darkness and death. Isn't that what Christians and religious folks do? Yet he is the bringer of light. There is something very odd about all this. What have I been telling you guys for years? He is the embodiment of light and darkness, the harmonization. It's like when you read, if you're familiar with the Star Wars trilogy, right? That basically is the story of the war that took place in heaven. Darth Vader is Lucifer, or the devil, whatever you want to refer to him as, right? And then when you look at the Jedi Knights, and you look at the little one, Yoda, right? That's the story of the, that's Angel Michael doing war with the dragon and his angels. And it's the battle for control. It's pulling on the narrative of the wars that took place in the so-called heavens. That's what you're looking at. And it's not a coincidence that they're called Sith. Seth, one of Seth's titles in ancient Egypt in the Greek. Seth, Sith. It's not a coincidence, the phonetic good words. The sun rises and what? The sun sets, right? What do they say? In order for you to really understand, you have to have a certain mind set. You have to have the mind of Set. Everything they tell you is evil and wicked is really what you needed to really give you the intellect and the illumination you need to master yourself. So Lucifer, light bearer, what is the light that he bears? I told you guys this a million times, intellect. What does a true Luciferian seek? Light, to become illuminated, or an illuminatus, or an illuminated one. If anybody's in the Rosicrucian order, you get to the temple degrees. What is a degree of illuminatus? You become illuminate, an illuminated one, right? Illuminated with what? Light. What light? Intellect. So because this light bearer bared the light and darkness simultaneously, but his goal was to bring the light, the true intellect, to dispel the false light, the false illumination, the wrong knowledge or intellect. That's where your rebellious story comes in. Even when you read that story in the Quran about Iblis, it's the same story recorded in Revelations 12. Basically, Iblis or Lucifer says, fuck that shit. That shit is bullshit. See, you're looking at those beings that he's talking to as infallible. You think it's this spooky, you've been programmed to think that it's these good beings, and what you're not understanding is the full context of it. I mentioned in the beginning of the video, if you go study the Al-Jilwa, the Black Book of the Yazidis, you'll get a clearer interpretation of this story, right? Another title of this being is Melik Taus, the peacock angel. That's getting into something else. That's the son of the bright and morning star, the peacock angel. And it describes him as one of the most beautiful angels ever to scale the heavens, as they say in the book, right? And if you've ever seen a peacock, when a peacock spreads its wings, it's a sight to behold, right? Like I said, Lucifer, the Bible, and the Great Deception. The Great Deception is the way they're teaching it from the Bible, but let's continue, all right? So the devil Lucifer, as it says, is always associated with darkness and death, yet he is the bringer of light. There's something very odd about all this. Could it be that poor old Lucifer has been an innocent victim of a smear campaign by Christianity in general and the Catholic Church in particular? You come to that conclusion. I'm going to say yes, right? So because they don't know the origin of the words, because they don't teach it to you correctly, you don't get the full context. They always add all this mythological shit to it that has nothing to do with anything. Now, Carl Nagel in the next section goes into something called, in this short pamphlet, the internal scapegoat. I love this one. Some of us blame the devil for every misfortune, right? And he gives an example here, but I'm going to give you a simple one, okay? But actually, we'll read this too. On the evening of June 9th, 1979, a fire broke out in the ghost train ride at Sydney's Luna Park in Australia. 6 children and a number of adults died in the blaze. A woman who lost her husband and 2 young sons in this tragedy for the past 30 years kept a photo which haunted her ever since. It shows a witch doctor dressed in black magic outfit who picked her son out of a crowd and posed with him just hours before they died. On the morning of the fire, the family watched the street parade at a circular quay across Sydney Harbor from Luna Park. A man in a witch doctor costume, horns, skull mask, animal skins, moccasins, and carrying a rattle, left the parade and pushed through the crowd towards the boy. Do you mind if I have a photo taken with your son? The mysterious man asked, placing his hand on the boy's shoulder. Hours later, the boy, his father, and his brother were all dead. He wasn't frightened by the man, the boy's mother told the reporter. He was a little bit nervous to stand close to him, but just took it in stride. Without saying a word, the mystery man returned to the International Year of the Child Parade as quickly as he had appeared. The boy's mother felt that it was an omen. Looking back now, I see it as part of a big plan, a plan far beyond earthly reasoning, with other forces involved, the devil or something like that, she told the reporter. It is easy to blame the devil for every bad thing that happens to us, but is it really his fault? Sometimes bad luck is just that, bad luck. So let me give you an even better example. So he's using this story, how people are programmed. And the funny thing is, religious folks, when something positive happens, they'll say shit like, praise God, hallelujah. Oh man, God has blessed me. When everything is going great. But then when shit is fucked up, what's the first thing out of their mouth? Oh man, the devil's on my back. The devil made me do it. The devil's at work again. Not understanding you're trying to separate two things that are identically the same source. All right, so let me clarify this shit. You'll have somebody where a tragedy happens, a plane crash, okay? Plane crashes, and if there's some survivors, what's the first thing you always see when they interview a survivor on the news? Oh man, praise the Lord. Praise God that I survived, I made it out of there. But in saying that, was it not the same God that killed everybody else on that plane? Yes or no? And I'm saying that to say, don't separate the two. Again, if you missed that real quick. When there's a tragedy like a plane crash, survivors will get on the news and they'll say, praise the Lord, praise God. Thank you, Jesus. I survived. They got me out of it. And you're saying that, not realizing the same God allowed all the other people on that plane to be killed. So you might be saying, oh, Baniti, oh no, you're getting too eccentric. Am I? So if you don't believe it's one and the same source, let's hear it out of the mouth of the same God who makes that clear. And I'll go to the Bible for the religious folks. And this is something you can use when teaching them in a responsible way, not to bash them, but to teach them. Go to Isaiah chapter 45. This is one of my favorite conversations going back 20 plus years that I have with reverends and pastors. And man, you talk about the Ralph Crandom on this one. I get the, Now, we're going to read what it says without any confusion, and it's plain as day. Go to the 45th chapter of Isaiah. I'm going to be passing the collection basket around soon. Let me stop. Just having fun. Just having fun. All right. Let's start with verse 5. Go to Isaiah chapter 45, verse 5. And I have to do that because it's clear who's talking in this verse, in this path, in these few verses. We're going to go to verse 7. It says, I am the Lord, and there is none else. There is no God beside me. I girded thee through, though thou hast not known me. So who's speaking here? Let's not give interpretations. It's clear. It's the Lord God of the Bible speaking. You can't deny that. Okay, verse 6. That they may know from the rising of the sun and from the west that there is none beside me. I am the Lord, and there is none else. So the first verse wasn't good enough. He's got to get more egotistical. He's verifying again in the next verse. Clear as day, he is the Lord God. There's none else besides him. He is the Almighty One. Though y'all have not known me, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing to debate. There's no interpretation here. I've watched Christian ministers try to interpret this and dance around it because of the next verse. And then verse 7, listen to what this God says. After declaring who he is now, he says, I form the light and I create darkness. Really? Stop. Hold that verse right there. Hold it. Let's go to Genesis chapter 1. And we're going to come right back there. Hold 45 in Isaiah. Let's go to Genesis chapter 1, shall we? It says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So God was roaming in this deep, void, watery, dark abyss. And that's why I've said many times before, is darkness really an evil thing? Is not the planet engulfed in darkness at all times? If we don't get the reflection from the sun's light, we are in darkness at all times. This planet is engulfed in darkness at all times. God existed in darkness before he said in the next verse, let there be light. Now go back to Isaiah chapter 45. So I have to show you that so you can't say, well, Baniti, no, you're interpreting. No, I'm not. Now watch what he says out of his mouth, the next word. I form the light and create darkness, because he existed in darkness, so he would have had to create it. He says, I make peace and create evil. Hold on, back up. This is God. I create peace and create evil. And if you're saying, no, you're misinterpreting, what's the next? I, the Lord, do all these things. Don't try to twist that over. It's very simple. So this God is taking responsibility for light and darkness, but that's the second part. He creates good and he creates evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. So don't separate the two. Okay? Those that don't know, when you're saying Yahweh, you are saying agreeable and disagreeable. The title Yahweh, you're saying God has a good and a bad nature. Now, as I told you before, the reason why you're saying God making these statements, I have no gods beside me, I am the Lord your God, I'm a jealous God, it's because the Christians don't realize this is the God, the Canaanite God El, right? Who some know as Baal Hadad, right? They worship the Canaanite God El and they don't even know it. That's their God of the Bible that's giving them all these rules and restrictions. Don't do this, don't do that. Have no other gods before me. Now, if you were paying attention, I told you the Catholic Church tries to modify their priesthood after the order of Melchizedek, only parts of it, with the bread and the wine, the reenactment at the Last Supper. And if you look at, like I told you many times before, when a Catholic priest, an old school one, is offering Mass, they are reenacting when an animal is sacrificed. When the Levite priesthood goes into the Holy of Holies and an animal was sacrificed, it was required that they drop blood on all four corners of all four parts of the altar, north, south, east, west. Had to be on all four parts of the altar, right? And only the Levitical priesthood could do this, right? They were the only ones that could go into the Holy of Holies. That's why they wore breastplates. This is why when you see movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? They have to have certain things on because it was a conductor, a thing of energy that they believed carried magical power. So they had to wear certain medals and breastplates when they went into the Holy Holies and administered to the Ark so they wouldn't get fucking electrocuted, right? And that's why they showed you movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark, because what happens when those who pounce upon it and are not quote unquote authorized, you saw what happens to them. They get destroyed because they're not knowledgeable how to deal with the energy. So they would go into the Holy Holies when they offered a sacrifice, and only the Levites could offer the sacrifices, the blood offerings. Only they could do it. They would drip blood on north, south, east, west. Watch an old school priest during the Mass as he's raising first the bread, then the wine. He'll do this real quick. I showed you guys this. He'll go front, back, left, right, reenacting what the Levite priesthood did, or the Cohens. He does it with the wine too. They say this is when the act of transubstantiation takes place. This is when the bread and wine is turned into the body and the blood of Christ, right? But really what they're not telling you is their priesthood is after a reptilian order. I know this is going to sound fucking crazy. That goes back to the deity Dagon, which has ties and connection to the Canaanite god El, right? They're interchanged when you do the research. So they're really worshiping the deity Dagon. How do you know? All you got to do is look at their dress, right? If you go pull up a picture of Dagon now, you'll see he's depicted in ancient Samaria as part man, part fish. He has the upper body of a man, and he has the bottom part of a fish, a big tail. Now, if you look at his hat, and then you look at the fish tail, it's the identical hat that the cardinals, the bishops, and the priests wear. That's the hierarchy of the church. They're the only ones that can wear that hat. A priest can't wear it. You have to be elevated to bishop. Then the next would be cardinal, and then next would be obviously the pope. Pope. If you look at it, it's called the mitre, M-I-T-R-E, the hat that the popes, the cardinals, and the bishops wear. And they have the two, if you look on the back of it, they have the two sashes that go down. Look at Dagon's hat. It's the same thing he wears. And look at the tail. It's the tail of a fish. So they are telling the world, they are trying to bring the world into the worship of Dagon and intermixing the priesthood of Melchizedek with it. So that's why Nagel says here, is it Christianity in general, or is it the Catholic Church in particular, right? So they're reenacting rituals in front of you all the time. You're just not aware of it, right? Because you look at the dress. Did you have a question? And look at the staff the Pope holds, right? Look at it closely. Pull a picture up of it and blow it up. It almost is identical to the caduceus, which is, I told you before, which is the AMA symbol, the American Medical Association. Why do they use a serpent, the Kundalini rising, a serpent going up this staff, which really represents that serpent of Kundalini energy. So here we have a serpent symbol, a staff the Pope holds. He's wearing the mitre of Dagon, and his cardinals and his flock all are in the same dress, the hierarchy from the bishops to the cardinals up to the Pope. Okay? I'm trying to show you this is all connected. Son of righteousness must come with healing in its wings in order for the transformation or the cycle to change into the next cycle. So men can do all this bullshit and try to prevent it. You can't stop nature. Nature's going to do what nature does. It doesn't give a fuck who you are. It doesn't care what your likes or dislikes are. It don't care if you're male, female, black, white. Like, get out of its way. When she's getting ready to do her thing, Mother Nature, not Father Nature. It's not called Father Nature because this planet is governed and ruled by feminine forces, not male forces. And the reason why it's in disarray because men continuously force themselves to be rulers, and it goes against the natural cycle of things. Till the man can humble himself, because look what happens. What's up? When a woman's fed up, as R. Kelly said. Yeah, I know, maybe not the best guy to quote, but fuck it. When a woman's fed up, everything goes to shit. Well, the woman is fed up. You angered the worst woman you can anger, period. And now she's like, bitches, it's time to go. I had enough of this. All right, here's a fucking heat waves. Here's this. Here's that. It's the day and time we're living in. It's a great day and time if you understand what's going on, right? Let me continue. So don't try to separate what you think is good and bad. And then if you believe the devil made you do it and you're religious, who created the devil? According to your religious theology, God. I can give you another quote in Job, but I could be here all night doing this shit. But let's get through Carl's stuff. We're almost there. We have a couple more things and then we're done. I'll take some questions. The eternal scapegoat. I love this one. Well, that's the one we just finished. I'm sorry. Eternal scapegoat. Now let's go to the next one. He talks about the Bible and Lucifer. He is known by many names in the New Testament. Satan, the devil, the adversary, enemy, accuser, old serpent, great dragon, Belial, Beelzebub, but never as Lucifer. Matthew 4:1. Then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. You might want to write these down. Matthew 4:10. Then said Jesus to him, get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. Matthew 4:11. Then the devil leaveth him, and behold, angels came and ministered unto him. Matthew 10:25. It is enough for the disciple that he be as his master and the servant as his Lord. If they call the master of the house Beelzebub, how much more shall they call them of his household? Notice to pay attention to the books. This is the only ones where you find it. Matthew 12:24. But when the Pharisees heard it, they say the fellow doth cast out devils, but by Beelzebub, the prince of devils. Matthew 13:39. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. Mark 4:15. And these are they by the wayside where the word is sown, but when they have heard, Satan cometh immediately and taketh away the word that was sown in their hearts. Luke 10:18. And he said unto them, I beheld Satan as a lightning fall from heaven. Peter 5:8. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. Revelations 12:9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. I'm going to prove that wrong. The Catholic Church made Lucifer responsible for all a man's shortcomings. Yet each of us is born with free will to do good or evil, and we should not blame an angel for the evils of the world. If we accept the meaning of his name as literal, and there's no reason not to, then it is Lucifer who can chase away the darkness in our lives. Now watch this. Let's go to Genesis chapter 3. You see what Nagel did there is genius, because notice it was only Luke, Matthew, and Mark. You're not going to find him referred to that in any of the books of the prophets, because again, that's a whole nother class, getting into the origin of the New Testament. the books. This is something the Nicene councils, the Council of Trent, the different councils that came together and decided which books should be in the Bible, which were not, what shit they altered. Like, for an example, first letter of John 5:7, that is not in the original manuscript, and it's the only verse in the entire Bible that the Trinity is mentioned exactly how it's taught in the Catholic Church, for an example, or those who believe in the triune or Trinity God, and I talked about that in a video. You have to understand that history because that's how you unfold the agenda. And when I say the agenda, the powers that be that want control. Religion is a powerful tool that's used to control the masses. And the only way you're going to be able to break that system of control and indoctrination is to reform this shit. Like I'm doing now. Go through this shit, break it down, understand it, because just writing it off and going, oh, fuck, it's all bullshit. All right, that's true. But you got to go through the process to get to that point, because that's the way you alter the frequency or the energy of the programming. To just leave it there like that, you're not doing anything, right? But let's go into the 3rd chapter of Genesis, a story that is used and misinterpreted all the time. Let's go to verse. Actually, it's where is it? Yeah. Yeah, 3. I'm sorry. Let's start at verse. Let's start in first 1. Right? And it says, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, hath God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden. Now let's stop for a minute. Do serpents talk, people? Do you know the meaning of the word serpent? See, here's another deceptive trick. Hold on. Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. I got to respond to something real quick. Give me 1 second, folks. All right. So when you look at the word serpent, You immediately, they have tricked you to believe. Let's go, just so you can see I'm not making it up. All right, hold on. Back to my screen. Hell? There we go. All right. I have to pull this up so you can see it because you know this is how I do it. So when you look at the word serpent, they trick you because you have to go back to the origin of the words, the languages, right? Example, synonyms. I'm trying to find it here. Well, anyway, when you have more time, you'll see in one instance, they'll tell you it could be a snake, right? But then in other instances, you go back to the origin of the words, they say it actually means a sly or treacherous person, especially one who exploits a position or trust in order to betray it. Or they'll also put craftiness, one who is very beguiling, etc. When you have time, go look up how they intertwine two meanings. My question is, we're all grown adults. Do serpents, snakes have voice boxes? Do we really believe as grown adults? So are we supposed to accept this story as grown adults that a snake was talking to Eve in the garden? And if you say yes, no offense, you're as fucking dumb, stupid, ignorant, and immature that you probably were beyond that you knew. Okay, so let's establish she was talking to a man in the garden, and a literal. We're not talking to some fictitious character, right? These gods or goddess, these Nephilims that incarnated in earth, these sons of God that came down into the daughter. Remember, I told you there were beings already here. You're reading stories from other cultures, and there were beings that were already here. But let's continue. So let's get the snakes don't talk. And the woman said unto the serpent, now she's having a full conversation with a snake. That's what we're supposed to believe. We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God had said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. Now, that's what they were told, right? God, listen to the fuckery. This is how you know this is a mortal being. He says, yeah, this is the Garden of Eden. Knock yourself out, party, have fun. You can do whatever you want. You can do this, that, and the third. You can go over there. You can fuck with this. Just don't touch that particular tree. What kind of fuckery is this, man? That's just like, let me tell you something. That's just like me putting small children in a room and putting a box on the table or some candy. And I have the whole room littered with toys, and I tell them, you can play with these toys. They just don't touch that dish of candy at the center of the table. What's the first thing them fucking kids are gonna do? You see the mind fucker? Only a human being with human mentality would do some shit like that. Now, when you go to the esoterical breakdown of what the tree is, we can get into the Akashic records. That's a whole other story. Again, I'm teaching this if I'm looking at it from biblical theology. Keep that in mind. We know that tree really represented the tree of life. We know when we get to the esoterical aspect, it's really talking about the serpent and the rising of the Kundalini and the awakening of our consciousness, or the activation of quote unquote the pineal being open and receptive. But that's if we're dealing with it from another perspective. I'm sorry. Keep this in mind. I'm teaching this as if it's from religious theology, and I'm questioning it, right? So just for those that might watch the recording later, or if you came in late, right? So now, like, she's responding to this so-called serpent. She said, well, we're told if we eat of that tree, we will die. Watch his response. And the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil, right? Now it tells you can read the rest. When she ate, their eyes became open. Now, notice what the serpent responds to her. He says, you're not going to die. That's bullshit. He said that God that told you not to eat from that tree, he knew if you did that, the day you eat from it, you will become like them, like a God, knowing good from evil. So the question I'm trying to bring out, as it says here, what Carl Nagel was saying, are we using this devil as a scapegoat? Because did he not literally tell the truth here? Because it was actually God lying to Eve in this instance, because he lied and said they would die. And it gets worse, because then when he appears to go find them, he don't even know where they are. He says God's walking in the cool of the day, right? They stress the cool of the day. So I guess God gets hot. He's got to walk in the cool of the day, right? Where is that? Going to verse 6, and they heard the voice after they ate this apple, transgressed, their eyes were open. Then it says they created aprons to cover their nakedness. So, I mean, this is such fuckery. And they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves in the presence of the Lord amongst the trees of the garden. They're trying to hide from the omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient God. And look how dumb. And the Lord God called unto them and said unto them, where art thou? What? How could the omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent God not know where something is that he created? This is complete stupidity. See, I'm pointing these things out because I'm trying to show you the stupidity of this story. Because remember, these are the same religions that program you to believe that this God is the all-knowing, all that stuff. Well, he couldn't even find two people that he created that were hiding from him in a garden that he created. This makes no sense, people. We got to decipher these stupidity fairy tales, because this is what's going to make us be able to use common sense and basic reasoning to come to the conclusion that this is the fuckery that they put on us for years, right? So now, let's look at the last section, Luciferian magic. Okay. Oh, no, that's getting into something else. We don't need to get into that. I think that's kind of what I wanted to get into as far as from that excerpt in the book. Okay, so I'm trying to show you here how these stories, right, how they intertwine them, right? And they'll say that this serpent in the garden, right, everything is attributed, they always try to find something to shift the blame. Now, also keep in mind, we're back to the point with the scapegoat, Azazel, right? The one removed, right? Remember, there's a rite in Hebrew tradition that they believe that they can cast all evil and wrongdoing on to a goat, and then that goat is sacrificed, and through that offering of that blood of that sacrifice, it's kind of an atonement, right? So that's why you'll see one of the names, the scapegoat, right? And are we using the scapegoat? Do we not have free will, right? And I've said free will simply is the art of you exercising your decision and making choices and decisions that obviously are going to affect you in a good or a bad way. That's all karma is. And karma is manifested based on how you use your free will. So there's nothing free when it comes to energy, because when you're making a choice or a decision, there's a certain energy that is exercised in that choice of exercising the decision of your free will. And then there's a certain energy that manifests from that decision, which we like to call karma, and spook it the fuck out, right? So in essence, as he says here, Carl Nagel, which I love this saying right here, he says, hold on. So I quote it right. Is it not, if then is it Lucifer who can chase away the darkness in our lives? Okay. That is an important statement, because we like to find reasons to shift the blame, to use a scapegoat. He's trying to get people to see, wake the fuck up. These stories are stupid. right? Which keeps you controlled and programmed. They try to make it look like it's two separate things. When again, if you understand your seven hermetic principles of Tahuti, especially the doctrine of polarity, and what is polarity, and what is the doctrine of rhythm and vibration, all things come from the same source, but they're varying degrees of vibrational frequencies of the same thing. So this God devil concept is a polarity of the same thing. It just vibrates at different frequencies on how you perceive it. And you've been programmed backwards to think what is evil is good and what is good, quote unquote, is evil. Right? You've been taught the wrong way. All right. But having said that, let me see if we got any questions here. I'm going to go up to the top. I'm going to try my best to focus on questions due to time constraints. So I'm going to try to focus on questions. And, maybe if there's a comment here and there that I feel is important. So I'm going to try to not focus just on comments, just so I can get to questions. Now, if you want your question to be answered quicker, if you do a super chat and it comes to the top, I will answer super chat questions first. That's just courtesy. So you can click the super chat at the bottom. You can just send a small donation. That brings you to the top. And super chat questions will get, if you don't feel like waiting, if you're at the bottom, you don't have time for me to wait to get to you, send a super chat and I'll answer your question first. All right, so let's see what we got. For the time being, I'm just going to go in order. It's only fair. I know there might be some people still here. Some people may not be here, but I'm just going to answer the questions. Jose Munoz says, what are your thoughts on the book of Isaiah and how it prophesies the coming of Christ? Isn't the God of the book Isaiah also the demiurge? I'm not sure. You obviously got that, read that from somewhere. I'm not sure if you're referring to the prophecy of Emmanuel and Isaiah, and where did you get, so I can address it from that context. Isn't the God of the book of Isaiah also the demiurge? Well, that same God would also be technically the God of most of the books of the Bible. So obviously you read something somewhere, I tapped into it. Try to give me a little more on that and I'll address it. Now, the Emmanuel prophecy that they always attribute to Jesus, if you really read in the context in Isaiah, and actually I'll show you what chapter it is. It's not referring to Jesus. It's actually referring to a birth of a specific individual at that time. And they love to use this one too. I believe it's Isaiah. I can't remember which. I know it's in there. I have it marked. I just got to go to it. But I know what you're talking about in regards to that. Where is it? All right, right here. Bear with me. I think it's 4, if I'm not mistaken. Perhaps it's further up. Yeah, and I know as far as the demiurge you're referring to, that whole prophecy cast in the pit, this and that. And that's what you're referring to when you read something else in reference to that. Hold on. It's Isaiah 7 and 8. I thought I had it marked. And again, I know why they attribute it to Jesus. Well, let's go through it real quick. Uh, 7:14 it is. But what they don't do, so this is the one I always use to tell you. Therefore, the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son and shall call his name Emmanuel. Now, if you read the context closely, it's talking about Ahaz, A-H-A-Z. Read it from the top. See, when people hear the term virgin birth, they think it was only being attributed exclusively to Mary. If you read the whole chapter 7, it makes it clear. It's the same thing when you look at Elizabeth, right, who was the mother of John the Baptist. She too was also pure and chaste, right? But we think because we see that story in Luke, when you read the whole chapter, see, this is what I'm saying. They picked out a lot of these stories and they don't know the origin of what the story, the context, what it's saying. They go to 8:18 too, and I think they mentioned it again in 8:18, I believe. No, that's all right. That's referring to something else. So I was wrong about 8:18, but it's 7:14. Now, when you get into Isaiah, and it talks about, it could be why you're saying the demiurge thing, being cast into the God coming casting into the pits right here. Isaiah 24, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high, and the kings of the earth upon the earth, and they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit, and shall be shut up in the prison, and after many days they shall be visited. Then the moon shall be confounded, and the sun ashamed, when the Lord of hosts shall reign in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem before his ancients gloriously. There is demiurge energy when you read through the book, but again, my question, did you read that somewhere, and what are you connecting that with, if that's not what it was? All right, but I kind of get your questions. All right, let's see what else we got. Questions. All right, looking for questions. Melanin98 says, I've had an unsatisfied experience with a YT-Coke teacher, but I didn't get my reading done. He was very complicated to work with. I'd like to know if you're reliable. Well, I'm not sure what your experiences was with that individual, so I can't speak to that, but I can tell you anybody that's worked with me over the years, I'm straight to the point, cutthroat, no games. If you reach out to me to book a reading, once we set a date, you pay. I send the Zoom link, and we stick to that agreement. And then my method of working, just to be clear, I'm not one of those people that you got all these bullshit people on the internet telling you that you could pay them to do some ritual work for you. That's not how I operate. So I just want to make that clear, not just to you, to anybody listening. I show people how they can do it for themselves, right? That's all a hustle and a scam, paying somebody to do a spell and do this and that. All you got to do, you go, all you hear is complaints about these people, rip-offs. You go on to, what's that shit you can look up? I forgot that site, Con Artists and Ripple. You'll see a bunch of names of people on the internet. I don't work like that, right? I believe everybody has the power and the ability to do this for themselves. And I show people how you can do it for yourself. So if you're not a person that can embrace that concept, and you're not the person who wants to put the time, effort, and energy to do for self, to master self, then I wouldn't be the right person for you. So yes, I do tap into divination, connect with the spirits, and to see what information comes through. And any work that comes through, I explain to you how you do it for yourself. Now, I don't force anybody to do anything because it's not my job, right? I'm not interested in forcing you to do something or not. You have to make that conscious decision for yourself. But anybody that I tell them in the beginning of the reading, if you reach out to me for a reading or a session, it would be foolish not to carry out the information you get, because that's the point of doing a reading, to get information to better yourself. So if you're looking to do it on that context, yes, I'm reliable. I'm not one of the people that procrastinate, book a consultation and leave you hanging and take forever to get to you. When we agree upon a date you pay, that's the date, that's the time. And I'm just straight to the point. That's just how I work. If you're that type of person, then yeah, I'm the person for you. But if you're looking for somebody that's going to do the hocus pocus, pay me money, and I'm going to do a spell and cast a spell and I'm going to destroy all your enemies, then that's that bullshit. I can tell you that doesn't work. All right. You might as well just take your money, piss it away, or burn it. That's basically what you're doing. All right. So hopefully that answers your question. All right. What's that name? Dat BK and Golden one. I don't know. You're from Brooklyn, BK? Oh no, Black. I'm sorry, that Black Golden one. I swear, I think Primordial Cast would say, "Believe in yourself before turning into a god." I might be wrong, Lord. Good play. No, I would, because you are God. That's why I say that. Like I said, understanding what, for an example, animism is or antinomianism, and that's what Jesus was trying to teach. When you see me, you see God. He wasn't saying he was God. And they say blasphemy in John 10:34. And he said, is it not written in your law? Separate himself, that ye are God's children of the Most High. Psalms 82, when King David says the same thing to the congregation of Israel. And then does not Genesis 2:7 say, God breathed into man, God nostrils, the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So the essence of God resides within all of us. And that's what Jesus really was trying to teach in the Bible. He was saying, stop following these men. Stop looking for some spook God out there in the sky. It didn't say the kingdom of heaven resides within man. When you see me, you see God. When I see you, I see God. When I look at nature and creation, the sun, the moon, the stars, the water, the soil, I see God. It's reflected in every aspect of nature and creation and within humans. That's what animism is, and that's what antinomianism is, right? That's the concept. That's basically what Jesus was teaching. But they thought he was coming with some foreign, oh, he does devils. And oh, he works magic. He heals by the power of devils. No, he healed by understanding the ancient science of what's called Egypt. That stuff in the Bible that people think are miracles, the pharaohs were doing that regularly like it was nothing. Remember, they tried to tell you this Yahshua character. Remember, it's very mystical because you see his birth, then nothing until he's 12, coming back. Remember, if Egypt was so evil, ask yourself this question. If Egypt was so bad and evil, why would God send his only begotten son to hide out there when Herod was on a mission to find him and kill him? If he felt it was such a horrible place, he could have sent him anywhere else. And then what does it say? What? In the book of Ezra. Watch this. So you can get them all day with this, man. I eat these motherfuckers up for breakfast. Hosea, I'm sorry, not Ezra. Book of Hosea. I'm telling you, look, you guys got to understand, this was my history prior to all the occult. This was the stuff I was into. And I can hold a conversation with all these motherfuckers when it comes to this book. Because they think they know it, but they don't. Okay? Look how in Hosea 12, verse 9. I'm going to give you two quotes. And Hosea 13:4. It says, I that am the Lord thy God from the land of Egypt will yet make thee to dwell in the tabernacles as in the day of the solemn feast. Hosea 13:4. Yet I am the Lord thy God from the land of Egypt, and thou shalt know God but me, for there is no Savior besides me. So God now, I'm confused. God now is claiming Egypt. He's identifying he is. What I'm trying to say to you, if you take Egypt out of the Bible, there's a lot of shit you can't validate. Okay, and it gets into a bunch of other stuff. But again, the point being, okay, when you read it in its context here, okay, this is kind of saying adverse to you're taught that Egypt is this land of pagans, and so you're reading the story of the Hyksos. Right, so you read that story, and I don't even want, because look, that's a whole nother class in itself. You're reading the story of who they call Moses, the parting of the Red Sea, which cannot be historically validated. I've gone through the historicity of the so-called Exodus of Egypt. Right, there's no record in ancient Egypt of any people on record by name called Israelites being in bondage for 430 plus years. Now, you would think if a people resided somewhere for 430 years, there would be some record of them by name. And there's no record anybody can produce. Now, you do find a group of people called the Hyksos or the Hekakasut, who were in Egypt for 430 years and ironically matched the description of the Israelites. That's a whole nother story, a whole nother class. Okay? All right. Anything. Get my point. What else we got? Melanie9 says, just I don't do pendulum readings. All right. So if you're looking at all my videos, I do Egyptian oracle readings, Santa Muerte readings, Clepothic demonic readings, which you can do general reading really with any of them. So yeah, I don't really do that particular type of reading. I mean, you could shoot me an email. I could send you a list of the type of readings I do, but I don't do a pendulum. I don't really mess with that. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I don't do it. All right. What else we got? That black and golden one. I did learn a lot about my power here. Well, that's awesome. Amazing, Nini. Okay, do that. Reach out. I know it's been a while. It's funny because I think it was about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. You had popped up. I think it was on Instagram, and I meant to send you a message, but got sidetracked. But reach out. We gotta catch up. All right, what else we got? I'm looking for questions. I want to see. All right, it says, hey, Benny, how are you? I hope you and the family are having a good summer. Yeah, everything is good. Thank you for asking. All right, what else we got? Wrath636 says, yeah, that's a good comment. Society is definitely Christian-based, even those who try to mix religion with the occult practices. True indeed. All right. Well, again, I'm looking for questions, people, only for the sake of time. That's a good one from Zach M. Majority. I got to read this quote from Zach M. because I like this. And I don't know if he was referring to Lucifer or Jesus, but I would apply this to both of them. Majority of them are unaware of the fact that if he did return, they would not like him, right? What does he also say in the book, right? He says that. It's crazy you bring that up because he says when he returns, there was something they say, well, didn't we do many miracles and works in your name? And he says to them, when he returns, I will return and say to those, I never knew you. See, there's something in Matthew 24 that gets misinterpreted. And kind of what you're saying is sparking this, but I want to go, let me run there real quick. And if you go to Matthew 24, verse 4, it says, and Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. See, people say that that's people coming saying that they are Christ. That's not what he's saying. He's saying people will come in his name saying that he is Christ. It's clear as day. Now watch this. I want you to go into the book of Acts because he never referred to himself as Christ or Christos, which is a Greek word. If you go into the book of Acts, that was actually a title of mockery that comes way after Jesus is gone, right? Acts 26. And you know I got to take you there because I want you to see what I'm saying, right? This is a Greek word that comes after. Jesus never referred to himself as the Christ. Because remember, he's talking now at a time because the Romans are saying, we're referring to him in that title, and he says, beware of those who come saying that I am Christ. He's separating himself from that. Oh, hold on. Acts, I'm sorry. It's crazy that everything they teach had nothing to do with what he was saying. Oh, no, it's not 26. It's before that. Hold on. It's 16. Yeah. I'm sorry, Acts 11, verse 26. I had the number 26 in my head. And watch what it says. And when he had found him, he brought him unto Antioch, which is in Syria. And it came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the church and taught much people. And the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch, right? So Christian, which has root in the word Christ, because to be a Christian means to them to be Christ-like. This concept doesn't come until the time of Paul. And I'm not going to get into the whole Paul, Barnabas, and Saul, and Peter and Saul thing. That's a whole nother story. I'm pointing that out because he's making the distinction. Beware those people who come saying that I am Christ. See, they trick you and make you believe in the context of saying people coming who say they are Christ. That's not what it's saying. It says, for many shall come in my name, saying my Christ, and shall deceive many. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. How many times when a war, like I told you very early in the beginning of the class, when a war breaks out, this, that, and the third, they're quick to, they come to Matthew 24 every time. They did it with COVID, right? Anyway. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom shall against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in divers places. Well, this could apply to World War I and World War II. So now people will say, oh, now World War III is getting ready to bust off. There's Russia, there's Ukraine, there's the United States, there's Israel, there's Palestine and God. Well, I could apply that same narrative to when World War I and II was going on. I could have created the narrative at that time. This is it. This is the end of the world. This is the apocalypse. And people are going to do it now, and they'll do it again. Okay? And all these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you to the afflicted. And again, you can read the whole thing. It's pretty long. Okay? But he goes on to say to Zach M's quote, right? He goes to say when he returns, he'll say, but didn't we heal people in your name? Didn't we do these things in your name, this, that, and third? And he will say to them, I never knew you. Okay? But they don't read the whole thing, right? They just use it to create a narrative. Surround the Shaman says, yes. So realize, to your question, yes, when you synchronize the Heru story with the Jesus story, yes. Because remember, you're seeing that story told many times over many different periods. Tammuz would also be Jesus in ancient Samaria, when you read the Tammuz story, right? And he's mentioned, Tammuz is mentioned in Ezekiel. I believe it's Ezekiel 38, right? And nobody ever explains why is he mentioned there, that women are weeping at the gates of Tammuz, a Sumerian deity. Hold on, let me see if I think I have that marked. Hold on, yeah. It might be as Ezekiel 14. Some of the stuff I get. Hold on, I know I have it marked. Right here. Go to Ezekiel 8:14. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was towards the north. So let me ask you a question. This is the house of the Lord, God, which was towards the north, and behold, there sat woman weeping for Tammuz. Why are they weeping for a Sumerian deity, Tammuz, in the Lord's house? So, yes, you can connect it. If you understand who Tammuz is amongst the Anunnaki, he fits right in along with the narrative. Heru or Horus, because that's where they get the Immaculate Conception story. That's where they get the virgin birth story from, the Immaculate Conception. Where do they get that story from? From the story after the war that took place, the battle between Set. Now, I told you what that really represents, but when you get into religious theology, when Set tricks Asaru or Usir to go into a coffin and chops his body up into 14 pieces and sprinkles it on the Nile, Aset or Isis finds his phallus, and she uses that phallus to give birth to Heru or Horus, right? So you have the father, which is Usir. You have the son, which is Heru, who is a divine birth without the full aid of a man. The phallus is symbolic as a representation of fertility. This is why your churches have, when you look at your churches, they have domes and minarets. The minaret is the penis, the dome is the breast. It represents this story, right? So this immaculate birth takes place. When you look at the story of the Romans, when they go into Egypt, and the Greeks, and they invade the libraries of Alexandria, and they took the mysteries of Egypt back into Rome and Greece, they took from those stories and created their own mythology called worship of the holistic cat. What's the holistic cat, right? You got to go back to the pyramids of Giza. This is where they get the word Catholic in Greek, right? And I say that the word Catholic in Greek means universal. So when you're saying the Catholic Church, you're saying the universal church. But I told you there's a term in recent years that has been dropped from that. When I grew up, I'm 54. When I grew up, we referred to it as the Roman Catholic Church. Notice they don't use that word a lot no more. Most churches will just say Catholic Church. Where I grew up, my church said Roman Catholic. All the old school churches, some still have it, but they removed that from it, right? It was always known as the Roman Catholic Church because it was an infusion of Roman mythology and Christianity and ancient Egyptian teachings, right? They are the biggest sorcerers and magicians. They do it right in front of you, okay? So yes, that Heru story is equivalent to the Trinity. That's the real Trinity. Usir, Heru, and Kansu would be the Holy Spirit. And then you have the Blessed Virgin, which would be Aset or Isis. Yes. So there is a link to that. Then they say the whole story, yes, of when the rising of the sun over the Horus or the horizon, right? That represents the birth of the Savior, walking on the and it's at its zenith point in the noon hours of day, the reflection of the sun, or that's supposed to represent Christ walking on water, and then the setting or the death, and then back into the cycle of resurrection, birth, death, resurrection. But when you look at that crescent, right, you're only getting that's a full whole circle is 360 degrees. They're giving you 180 of the story because that's what the half crescent represents, right? Because when you look at that, when that's drawn on a map and you draw the straight line, you have 180, which is the 9. They didn't give you the other 9, right? Which that's getting into something else. A lot of people died and will continue to die waiting for Jesus because they told our mothers who have lost their mothers past, our grandparents, our great-great-grandparents. So yeah, remember he said, I am leaving, but I'll be back soon. I don't know about you. Need to clarify that soon shit, right? All right, try to get to the rest of this and wrap this up. I'm just getting late. All right, what else we got? Okay, I'm just kind of looking for questions now because I'm pressed for time. I want to see if I can get to questions. I'm probably not going to be able to get to everybody because I've got to wrap this up. Saran the Shaman, you're in Miami. You need to reach out. We are in Fort Lauderdale. I'm not sure if you're still here. Shoot me an email. We do get together. We have a group of us that are here. If you are interested, send an email. You're right, not too far from us. All right. Well, when you look at Jamel in 98's question, when you read it, like even that movie they made with Aaliyah, when you're looking at when they're talking about vampires, and you're reading different stories of Lilith, kind of got to go into the vampiric aspects of Lilith and getting into vampirism and vampire magic. That's a whole nother class. But I would definitely, I would looking at a good book to kind of get you acclimated with some of the vampiric energy and understanding that. You would have to go into books by Marquez Ruiz, the Ascetian Bible, to get kind of breakdowns on that. Stone University City. No, it doesn't mention in the text there that they had a child. Now, in some of these so-called lost texts, they make that claim, but no. In the actual King James text or your modern day Bible that people read, no, there's no context where it says that. Yeah, that's the whole point. All to hopefully I'm saying it here to Eridu. That's what I'm saying. There's no difference between the light and the dark. They're varying degrees of the same thing, and that's why the concept of Lucifer people misunderstood. Because, like Carl Nagel said in his pamphlet, they always attribute him to just darkness and destruction, and that's not true. right? You can't have one without the other, right? If you're saying light, you're saying you're also conscious of darkness. If you're saying darkness, you're also conscious of light. They're varying degrees of the same thing, and they're both needed. And that's been my point from day one. That's what a true occultist understands. That's what a true Luciferian practitioner understands, right? Now, it's only separated because there are varying degrees of it. So it gets classified. It's like people will ask this question too. They'll say, isn't all magic the same? Yes and no. Yes, because magic is magic. There's the ultimate goal of what you're trying to do when you accomplish magic is to try to obtain a desired result. So that never changes. Now, are there varying different degrees or vibrational frequencies of magic? Yes. There are more intense works or destructive works, which some would classify as dark. There are works of healing. There are works of, what some would call removing blockages or etc. So there's varying degrees, but in essence, it's all the same thing. It's all connected. It's just there's different methodologies and varying aspects of how it might be done. But what happens is men come along and create these religions and these sects and these dogmas and these spiritual systems and separate it and say, you have to be exclusively into the light and the lighter side of things. And then others come along and say it's all about being dark and gloom and doom and destructive. And that's where the problem comes. And then there's people like us who say you need both of what people are classifying light and darkness. You can't have one without the other. That's the whole point. Oh, the tunnels are set. That's like 18 classes. We're getting ready to start a tunnels are set class on the Patreon. That's coming next. Yeah, Jose, I did answer your question. So when the recording uploads, you might have to just go back and play the recording. For the sake of time, I'm not going to rehash it, but yes, it was. All right, let me read this comment. AJ just says, Benny, I can't thank you enough when you said you deal with the needs and the wants come later. I did the shadow work and I seen something big change a month or two after I started the work. Wow, glad to hear that. Awesome. All right, what else we got? Ren says, love the shadow work classes. I appreciate that. ARKs, if many people would just know who is the real Lucifer, he's the bounty. You just repeated what I said. That's awesome. Good and bad, he is not what the religious people, and that's facts. All that is facts. Altruistic, I love that phrase. God is good all the time. I love that phrase. Thank you for putting videos about Lucifer and Hecate. It helps me to understand them more. Cool. Appreciate that. Let me see what other questions I have. A couple more minutes, man. I got to wrap this up. I got to get up. Do something. I'm not even going to address that. That's the Old Testament God. See, that's the cop-out. So now you're separating. But if you believe God, first of all, if you believe in a triune God, they're all the same. Now you're separating as if that God in the Old Testament is different than the New Testament God. Why? To justify all the bloodshed, the violence, the animal sacrifice, the gore, the incest, the prostitution that he allowed, all the death. And that's the same God. You can't separate it. See, that's the cop-out that religious folks will use. They said the New Testament, the Old Testament, the New Testament God, the Old Testament. Well, what about people who believe that Jesus is God? Was he also that Old Testament God? So now you're making a separation between the two? If that's what you're alluding to, see, that's the bullshit that I'm talking about. You can't use that. It's all the same. The covenant, according to your so-called theology, might have changed by the so-called crucifixion, but now don't. So what God was that? Was it a separate God? That was a different God? Isn't God all the same? You can't make that separation. That is foolishness. That's the bullshit they try to sell you. And these are the same folks that'll criticize other people, for an example, who are in African traditional religions that practice animal sacrifice. Oh, that is wicked and that is evil. Well, shit, that Old Testament God killed more animals. Shit, there's one quote in, I think it's first or second Samuel, where it says a ridiculous amount of oxen were killed and sacrificed on the altar. This God talks about loving the smell of the burning flesh of animal carcasses burning on an altar. What kind of God is that? Right? But that's not the same God, though, in the New Testament. That's a different God. So then God is not all the same? There's not one God? So are you saying that there's an Old Testament God and there's a New Testament God? They're two different things? Just because the theology changed, so that makes them different? It's all the same shit. That's a cop-out. That's just for somebody who don't want to deal with the wickedness of that God of the Old Testament. That's a killer. That's a God who loves blood. That's a God who condones death and violence, but then turns around and tells you, thou shalt not kill. But it's okay to kill in the name of God when he says it's okay. It's okay to do it. Come on, man. That's a cop-out, man. That's just an individual's perspective. But when we deal with the essence of what it says, you can't get around that. No matter what your opinion is irrelevant. All right, what else we got? And I'm not even going to address any of that stuff. Too late in the class for it. Yes, creative soul, you hit it on the head. Religion is a disease. That's exactly what it is. It's one of the sicknesses that plagues the world. Most of your world conflicts are used. I mean, shit. Just we don't even got a Middle East. That's all I got to say. Go back. That conflict goes back to the Crusades, all in the name of God. And God could step in and intervene. The bloodshed started with the war for the Holy Lands, because the Christians, the Muslims, and the Jews all believed that they had the right to occupy Jerusalem. So God sat back and watched all this war, bloodshed, innocent women, children getting killed, women getting raped, molested, pillaged, when he could have just stepped in and said, these are my chosen people. So all three are fighting to this day, believing they are the chosen ones. And this God allows this confusion to continue, but nobody wants to talk about that. But they want to sit here and say, no, that's not what it means. It means, see, God loves everybody. We're all God's children, and all that fluffy bullshit that keeps people dumbed down. The reality is God can stop the bloodshed anytime he wants. All he's got to do is step in, make a divine revelation. The Muslims are the chosen ones. No, the Jews are the chosen. Look at the confusion. The Jews don't believe the Messiah came. The Christians say he has come and returned, and they are on the Jews. The Muslims don't believe what it's all chaos and confusion. And the God of the Bible and the Quran continues to allow it. You can't dance around that. I don't care what your belief is. I don't care what your interpretation is of the Bible. Your God allows this death and destruction to continue to this day. As we're sitting here talking right now, bombs are being dropped on Israel and Palestine. And innocent women and children that ain't got nothing to do with that shit, because egotistical men can't put their pride down, want to go at war and let this destruction happen, all in the name of Allah, all in the name of Yahweh, Elo, Hashem, whatever fucking title you want. That God is a killer, a warmonger, and he loves bloodshed and death, right? So you can say what you want about any of these other deities on the occult left-hand path, but that God of the Bible sure loves blood and death. No getting around it. So religion is a disease. It's a sickness that's killing the world. All right, let's see what else is that. Lily Lucci says there's a movie coming out called Shadow of God. They did this movie, right? I'll check it out. What else we got? That's a good question, Slim Lewis. And I appreciate the straight to the honesty. What is your advice for those who have done deep shadow work that has revealed laziness, lack of motivation? Thanks. Well, first of all, not sure exactly how, obviously, you came to that realization in your work, which is good. You got some clarity. Now, first of all, if there's no medical issues there, and it seems like there's not, right? A lack of laziness and motivation also leads to wasting time. And wasting time leads to inconsistency. And then obviously you're not productive and you're not getting any results. So look at how you manage your time. So if we just look at this simple and practical, it's nothing deep or spooky. See, on average, like I always tell people to do this test first. Take a note of what an ordinary day is like. And you could do it starting with a fresh day. Start how you start your morning. Break your whole day into categories of how much hours you did this or that to see how lazy or how you're wasting time. And then try to come up with a schedule where you can get productive, whether that's breaking it up at first to you, because through repetition is how that's going to change. So then look at how much time, let's say you're spending way too much time watching TV. Maybe you're spending too much time smoking weed, hanging out, or just maybe not just doing nothing, right? Calculate the time. You might have to create a schedule where you break your day up into segments and get into a regular routine of consistency. And then once that you do that consistently, that repetition will start to slowly but surely, break the laziness or the bad habits. Because I'm sure it's a lot of those habits lead to a lot of wasted time, right? So that's where when you do the shadow work and you uncover, you get the clarity. Step 2 is to devise a plan or a strategy now to address it. Because you can uncover a lot of things in shadow work, right? Especially things like that are issues or needs that need to be worked on. But if you don't devise a plan, and I'm just using that as an example. I mean, there could be more there. I'm just giving you like a quick example. So hopefully that hurts. I'm sorry, hurts. Helps. Sorry about that. The Stone Universe, can ancestor spirits be 2 places at once? Now, in the context that you're asking the question, right? You're asking a question that really can't be defined from a 3-dimensional perspective of person, place, and thing. Remember, spirits do not operate on our same aspect of what we first know as time. And see, we're looking at that from linear time. So, as I said before, linear time is an illusion because it doesn't exist. I don't want to go through that all again. I've talked about that many times, about the tick and the tock on the clock, the space in between the tick and the tock, and how these bands vibrate in between the space of the tick and the tock. So there can't be 60 seconds in a minute. There's tick, there's tock, there's a pause, and all that. I tried to get you guys to understand that time expands and contracts. So I use the analogy all the time of throwing a rock into a body of water. Where that rock hits in the center, from the center where the rock hits, ripples start to expand out. That is time. So it's one continuous present moment, right? And when I say it's one continuous present moment, it's something that just, it's a cycle. It just continues. There's no beginning or ending to it, right? So that, yes, because you're dealing with beings of energy, and any of that energy, whether we're talking about an ancestral spirit, what we know as an archetype, a god or a goddess, yes, it's like, here's another example. It's like if you're at a tambor for the Orisha in Ifa, right? And you can have at that tambor 4 people who are crowned Oshun. And when they start playing the drums for Oshun, the specific drum patterns that are for Oshun, which create the vibrational frequencies to access the energy of Oshun, because each one of those individuals have the ashe or the crowning of Oshun, or any of the Orishi. If anyone's crowning them on their head, it can activate the ashe of that energy that is on the crown of their head. So multiple people at one time can get possessed by, say, Oshun, because you're dealing with energy. Don't look at the human form, because the human form is for the mortal, the weak you, because the body and the flesh, as it appears, it's what that gets into a whole nother story or a whole nother aspect, because you personify that. But that, I'll be here for a while explaining that. So the answer to your question is yes. Don't look at that to be answered and defined, because on the physical realm or 3-dimensional realm, they'll tell you no, because they're looking at it from a 3-dimensional perspective, is my point. Ren, how often to do? That's just when you feel the need. That's any ritual. If you're feeling compelled to do it, you're being called. Never do anything where you feel like you got to be forced to do it, or it's like becomes like this mundane, repetitive thing. If you feel like you're being called and compelled to do it, and there's a reasoning behind it, then do it. So there's no set amount of times you should or should not do it. You establish that based on your needs and how you're connecting with your true or higher self. It's that simple. So there's no specific or frequency. All right. Any more questions? I'll try 1 or 2 more. Really, not unless I know it by another name. I think I've heard the term, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend. I'm not sure what you're referring to as far as the Phoenix phenomenon. I might, if you give me a little more info on it. Let me see if I Google it. Let me see what comes up. I might know it by something else. But that term, I'm not going to lie to you, nothing's coming to me, but let me see. Let me see what it says when I pull it up. because sometimes there's things out there, but they're calling it different names. But anyway, let me not speculate. But hold on. I can remember. Oh, okay. You're talking about like okay, yeah. Yeah. I had Roswell in my mind. Um, Most commonly refers to Phoenix-like UFO sighting in 1997 to be a pattern of microbial growth where cells initially decrease in number before recovering. It can also refer to a broader concept of resilience and rebirth and a different experience similar to mythological Phoenix rising from the ashes. Now, are you talking in the sense that some of these people that from this obvious event that were affected by this? Are you alluding to the fact that you were? Because there's obviously many people, and again, this is a dicey subject, and obviously, you know, you have to be careful when you talk about it to those. Maybe not so much to you, but to others, because some people get a little bit out there with it. Are you saying you were affected by this? I mean, there are people who have had contact with quote unquote what people are labeling extraterrestrial beings and have experienced things like that's described in there or other things. I mean, I've heard of this before. I don't know a lot exactly about it. But yeah, I mean, I talk a lot about that in certain forums. The extraterrestrial phenomenon, the presence of ETs, the civilizations and life forms. Obviously, we'd be foolish to think that our planet is the only intelligent civilization, let alone not just in our universe, but in the multiverses. We'd be stupid to think that. So I do, in my opinion, but I tell people to tread diligently and do their research. I mean, we can get into Area 51. I do believe our military has been in contact with intelligent life forms for many years. You can look at the Majestic 12 or the MJ-12. How some of these people in the military just magically disappeared because they knew certain things. They recently, which is crazy, a couple of weeks ago, they had these open panels and hearings in Senate about how they're going to be releasing so-called reports of extraterrestrial intelligence. And they did this conference a few weeks ago, these hearings for days, and nobody talked about it. It was on YouTube. You could have tuned in live, and if you would have thought there would have been a lot more people tuned in, but they had a way of making it very low key. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, you can go back to Val Thor. I mean, there's a lot of stuff when you go. I mean, you can go back to the history of our government for years. Again, I bring up Area 51. I mean, one of the hardest military bases to get clearance, and there's been a lot of people that came up disappeared that used to work there that leaked any little thing out, because the theory is, they claim, and I'm just telling you what's out there, they claim that is basically like they use it for a laboratory and experiments. They claim that there are ETs housed there. When they've made certain contacts with some of these beings, so there's been the theory for years. There's experiments going on there. You can read Betty and Barney Hill. What's the other dude? I mean, there's a lot of this out there. Communion, which was a good movie that tried to, Whitley Strieber's Communion. They tried to tell you about a lot of these things. Again, I don't want to get into all that here because I'm about to wrap it up. But yes, I do believe that stuff is real. But I encourage everybody to do their research, but you got to tread diligently with that and kind of have to be careful. All right, so what else we got? All right, I think we're kind of at the end. I mean, come on, dude. Zach Opak, really? You're going to ask that question who created the universe? I mean, come on, dude. That's like a 6-hour class right there. It's a very vague question. See, what I'm saying that, don't take that wrong. I say that because, see, people sometimes ask a question like that because they already got in their mind a concept of what they believe how the universe was created. So it's state what you think, and then we can build from there. But honestly, we're not going to do that right now because I've been saying for the last 20 minutes, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to wrap it up. All right. So anyway, I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll be on again. So some of you guys who I couldn't get to your questions, try to remind me next time. I want to thank all you guys for the support. I'll see some of you on Friday on Patreon for our end of the month ritual. Other than that, again, the pamphlet, if you want to research it before I go, The Six Messengers of Lucifer by Starlight Books. Author is Carl Nagel, Carlnagl. It's only like 13 pages. It's just a small pamphlet. All right. Other than that, that's it. I appreciate you guys. We'll talk soon. Frontal blessings. We out of here.